enjoy our chats with him. We'll go out to Arizona, find out more about this Cardinals team in hour number 2 that the Titans will face and host in week 1 of the NFL season as it inches a little bit closer. By the way, 1 week from today, the NFL season begins as the Cowgirls go to Tampa to take on the Bucs. What?
Hey
what?
now.
Hello? What? I know.
Hey now.
For all the new listeners out there, if you didn't hear yesterday, a disclaimer every day on the show, just be prepared. Chase loves the Cowboys. He loves them.
I do. And you know what?
He sleeps with a Cowboys pillow. He sleeps with a Cowboys blanket. And before he goes to bed, before he prays, he says, "How about them Cowboys?"
It's true. And when I wake up in the morning, it's how about them Cowboys. You know what I've decided? Last year, I got crap for asking Dallas Cowboys questions to Tim Hasselbeck.
You got a lot.
I did.
You got a lot of flack for that.
It did. And I let it get.
And I have to say, rightfully so.
Yeah, well, you can.
I thought it was justified at the time.
Number one,
the Cowboys were terrible.
Welcome back. And number 2, you can. Of course, you're going to say that, but I've decided that I don't care. I'm going to ask all the questions I want, and if you don't like it, then tough. That's how I feel.
So
about
it took you a year
Flexing
to get
is
that mad? Wow, took you.
Well,
a year.
I was
you
mad.
stewed on it for a year.
No, I was mad, but in typical Chase fashion, I was just like, okay, whatever. But no, I'm not going to do that anymore. Screw that.
Wow. All right. Little pep in your step today.
Silly Underdogs is at noon. I am ready. I am coming for all of you. I am coming for the championship. I am so fired up. I hit my bet last night, so let's go.
You had UAB, the Blazers?
I sure did.
Easy win for UAB.
They
look good.
That's one of those that after you've made your bet and
you're mad that you didn't do more.
Right. Because you're like, man, that was just easy.
Yeah. Yeah, that happens all too often. But you know what? If they would have lost, you'd be like, man, I'm glad I did that little.
Right. Exactly.
That's how it works. Yeah. No doubt about it. By the way, there's been a lot of trash talking already. I mean, Kelly Holcomb and Chris Sanders are just yapping away on our group text. And I'm just like, guys, just save it for the air today at noon. I mean, they are just back and forth. It's going to be what you've come to expect over the years. It is going to be a lot of fun starting at noon. We will do 2 college picks, of course. Today, you listeners out there have 3 picks. It is up and running. Don't forget, get to our website. Make your picks. Weekly prizes on the line. Brought to you every year by Volunteer Hose and Gasket. We appreciate them back on board. But you got a chance. Make your 3 picks. It's going to be all college this week, and there is a full slate. Like I said, the NFL doesn't start their season until a week from today. So this time next week, we'll be doing 1 college game and 1 pro game. So keep that in mind for next week. But this week it'll be all college, so have at it. So we will do that today at noon. We'll head up to Cleveland, get a little report on the Browns in the final hour. So we got a lot of things on our plate. The news today coming before we got on the air that Jarrell Casey has decided to call it a career. He is going to retire, and he will be made available to the media today by the Titans at 1 o'clock, which is interesting.
Yeah, I when that news came out and Robbie Bourne sent out the release from the Titans, I just got this. I just went, man, I am really glad to see that he's retiring as a Titan. And the morning guys were talking about it, that he reached out to J-Rob and kind of apologized for some comments. And Jarrell had every right to be upset when he was traded. Like, I get it. You spent your whole career here. It's the heat of the moment. It sucks to get traded. Like, it's fine. Like, I have no issue with that. But I'm really glad to see it in this way where you can come back around a year later and come home and retire as a Tennessee Titan, where he spent pretty much his entire career except for last year. So I think that'll be cool.
His entire career, because he didn't even play for Denver. So
he played against the Titans.
Well, I know, but I'm saying he didn't play for. I mean, that was it, right?
Right.
He got
I think
hurt
that was
and
it.
He was out for the year. So he played 1 game last year. So he played 1 game away from the Titans. So 5 Pro Bowls, and by the way, ranked 7th in franchise history in sacks, just behind the freak, Javon Curse.
Yep.
One behind. That's really interesting to think about, because when I think of Jarrell Casey, I was just, reflecting on this morning when the news came out. He was not, because you play the interior defensive line, I think he was almost underappreciated in some respects, because when you start thinking of great highlights of Jarrell Casey, he doesn't have a lot of spectacular strip sacks or, the types of plays that Curse made. Game-changing kind of plays, eye-popping plays. But Jarrell Casey was so solid at the little things, the things that don't always show up in the exciting sack category. But that's such an interesting stat that he was just one less sack than Javon Curse. Of course, it's a lot more games as a Titan, I would think, right? What's the number of games that each guy played for the Titans?
Oh, I mean,
Curse came back.
Jarrell would have had a lot more.
Yeah. So longevity is important. But, Joe and Robbie threw it out there this morning. Is he Ring of Honor kind of stuff? And at first I was thinking, no, not quite. But the more they talked about it, the more I was like, you know what? They probably will consider this over time.
There's some guys that need to get in before him.
Consider it? Oh, my goodness. He is a no-brainer. Ring of Honor?
A no-brainer. Yeah. It just depends on how big your Ring of Honor is going to be.
Yeah, I mean, I
at some point you run out of room on the ring.
Yeah, well,
if it's a true ring.
And they haven't put – I mean, there are guys that aren't in that, in my opinion, should already be in. I mean, that's the thing. Like, you say no-brainer in a normal sense, you're right. But with this organization, it took them forever to retire 9 and 27 because of Bud Adams' rule of you got to be in the Hall of Fame, which made no sense because those numbers should have been – they should have the high honors. But, just now putting Jeff Fisher and Floyd and Bum Phillips in, they should have already been in my opinion. I think D. Mace should be in. I think Bullock should be in. I think Blaine Bishop should be in. You can't put everybody, but there are some guys that have earned it that they're not there yet. So
this is how I look at it. To me, two different things. A Ring of Honor and a Hall of Fame could be two different things. In my mind, would be two different things. Titans Hall of Fame, I think Jarrell Casey and all the guys that Chase just mentioned are no-brainers. But the Ring of Honor, there's only a certain amount of ring. If it's a true ring in the stadium, I guess it's not a ring; it's more of a rectangle.
No, it's pieces of cardboard with names on it.
Yeah, you go over to Home Depot, you get the poster board, and you put it up there. But
it looks like a school.
There's only a certain amount of room if you're thinking, you got another 20, 30, 40 years to think about. You might have a smaller group of people there that make that.
Well, I actually kind of look at it the reverse of what you're saying. I think Hall of Fame, when you say Hall of Fame, like that's a very small group. A Ring of Honor is you're
in your franchise. That's a much looser term.
Yeah. That's how I look at it. And like
Hall of Fame is totally different. Ring of Honor, like Jarrell.
I'm talking about the Titans Hall of Fame, not the NFL Hall of Fame.
I know what you're saying.
You could put as many people as you want in the Titans Hall of Fame because you would have more room to display as many names as you want. I think the Ring of Honor is the top of the top. That's just how I look at it.
What I'm saying is I use the terms opposite of what you're saying. I look at the Hall of Fame as more the top. The Titans Hall of Fame is more top of the top, and a Ring of Honor is, hey, these are the really good. But anyway, that's neither here nor there.
That's interesting that you do look at, because I look at it the same way. I look as the Ring of Honor as the Titans Hall of Fame to me is the top. Ring of Honor to me is just another opportunity to acknowledge people.
Sure.
I could be wrong. I don't know how they look at it, but
so you have a big ring. Your ring is bigger than the Hall of Fame.
Well, change the wording then. I mean, I don't know.
Well, and that's honestly what it should be. Like I think that the way the Ring of Honor is currently set up,
it's almost like a different way to retire a number.
Is a Hall of
The
Fame.
Ring of Honor.
Yeah, I mean, the Ring of Honor is the Titans Hall of Fame. That's how they look at it. And then if you go in the stadium, they have like tight legends of the franchise that are just kind of hanging around, and that's where Jarrell's picture was up there immediately. So Jarrell Casey's up there, Delaney Walker's up there. I've said this several times. Vince Young and his legendary run as a Titans quarterback, he is up there. Chris Johnson's up there. But the Ring of Honor, you have to do something special to get into that. And that's where I think everybody that's in the Ring of Honor currently deserves to be in there for what they did. But I think they took too long to put Floyd and Jeff in there. Bum Phillips, I mean, come on. Like, I think he should have been in there a long time ago before the team even moved here. He should have been there. And then there are some other Titans players in this era that I feel need to be honored. And you know, as I said when they announced that they were putting Jeff and Floyd and Bum Phillips in there, you know, I feel like Amy Adams Strunk is recognizing that maybe her dad didn't do a very good job of that. And so she's trying to correct some of that. So maybe you'll see more guys like, you know, we're biased. I'm totally biased. I'll admit I'm biased. But if you sit here and you say that Derek Mason shouldn't be in, then you weren't paying attention. And you're just take the, you know, you hate the Ravens glasses off, because that's what a lot of people do that say, no, he shouldn't be in. It's because he went to the Ravens. Well, they cut him. So he had every right to go to wherever he wanted to go. You can be mad about that all you want, but he should be in there. He's still, to this day.
Remember, he was mad that he was cut. So it's not like he wanted to be cut. So, I mean, look, I guess really when you look at it, when you look at their actual Ring of Honor, it's probably more of what, I guess they're viewing it more of what you said. I've kind of viewed it what Chase put out. I just kind of viewed that as an opportunity to, but it doesn't look like that. I mean, when you think about the names they've got in the Ring of Honor, it definitely is their highest standard. So I guess if you look at it that way, then yeah, I guess he's not in the Ring of Honor. Because the names on there, Jarrell Casey doesn't fit the names that are on the Ring of Honor.
And the tricky part, of course, is you have the Oilers' history in there.
Correct.
In the Ring of Honor, which is
Elvin Bethea and George Blanda and those guys. Earl Campbell.
Right, which there's not a connection. So there's something that they could think about in terms of, do you want to adjust it and recognize the Oilers' greats in the stadium somewhere, but maybe not on the Ring of Honor, just because we've had enough history now in Nashville that maybe, you know, the Titans fans certainly look at it a little bit differently and connect more with a Jarrell Casey and Eddie George, all of those guys, as opposed to Elvin Bethea.
We'll come back. We'll talk college football with Ryan Mcgee, and right now I'm going to talk college football with you because it's back. And it is time to hit that over. Pound that over and score some cash with DraftKings Sportsbook. They're giving all customers a chance to lower the over-under this weekend's most anticipated college football game, Georgia versus Clemson. You bet I'm getting involved in this. For every 2,500 customers who bet on the over on Georgia versus Clemson, the line will drop by half a point. Everybody who hammers the over in this featured game will help lower the game's over-under. The best part is even as the line lowers, the odds remain at even money. That's right, you can double your money by just hitting that over. DraftKings is safe, secure, and reliable, so you can deposit and withdraw your funds at your convenience. Don't forget, download the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app right now. Use that promo code 1025GAME, and when you sign up, hit the over on the Clemson-Georgia game. And every 2,500 people that bet the over on that Saturday contest, the line will decrease by a half a point. Yes, this is your chance to improve your odds. Tell your friends and your family. This is a team effort, and let's get that thing down to zero. Hammer the over and improve your odds of doubling your money. That promo code again, 1025GAME, for a limited time. Only at DraftKings Sportsbook. You must be 21 years of age or older. Tennessee only. Restrictions do apply. Max $25 wager, one per customer. Offer ends on September 4th. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call or text the Tennessee Redline, 1-800-889-9789. Back here on Darren, Daunic, and Chase, ESPN 102.5 The Game here on this Thursday morning. Hope everybody's having a good day thus far. Darren Mcfarlane, Willie Daunic, and Chase McCabe with you. In just a moment, we should have Ryan Mcgee, and it looks like we have connected with the mothership. We have found Ryan Mcgee, a.k.a. Superhero, because he has packed his truck and he's ready to get into the college football season, and it looks like, quite honestly, he's a superhero. I don't even know why he drives a truck. He could probably fly or run really fast. Ryan, how you doing?
Yeah, I used to be able to run really fast, and then I got old, and so now I just pretend like a superhero.
Where are you headed? Are you going to a game? I know you're going to be part of SEC Nation at 6:30 Eastern, so 5:30 our time. Where are you going? Are you just going to be in Charlotte?
No, going to Atlanta. I'm actually
right.
I'm on I-85 southbound right now, which has been a mess ever since Sherman burned it down, and they're never going to fix it. I grew up right around here, but I'm headed down. So it's the craziest thing, right? I've got the Clemson Georgia game will be played 15 minutes from my house in Charlotte, but I am on my way to Atlanta. Right.
That
so
makes
I'll
sense.
be in Atlanta for Alabama, Miami, and about the time I get back to Charlotte Saturday night, everyone should be passing me on 85 headed south back to Athens and Clemson. So yeah, but it's anyway. Who knows? But the important thing is I'm going to be at a game. It's a pretty big game. Alabama I hear is pretty good, and I've known Manny Diaz since college, and so hopefully we'll have a decent football game Saturday afternoon.
Yeah. See how you just placed that? And that's the unfortunate part, right? Like, hopefully we should, right? I mean,
yeah.
Because we've seen this, right? We've seen every time Alabama goes up against USC or West Virginia or Oklahoma or whatever, we pick that non-conference big game that gets everybody's attention, like, whoa, this could be tricky. And Alabama just does what Alabama does and probably is going to blow out the Canes, probably.
Yeah, and they're just, I mean, listen, the Nick Saban ridiculous statistics are just everywhere you want to look. But, they're undefeated. It's either 11 or 12-0 in these neutral site, season opener games. And but they keep scheduling them. I mean, that's the thing is that they schedule the games, so it's they just take care of their business. So I give them credit for not just they don't have to play these games, they don't want to, but they do it, and they do it because Nick Saban likes to. Well, first of all, they do it because it pays pretty good money, but they also do it because it sends a message very early on, and Nick Saban's not a dumb guy. You beat Miami. Bunch of kids in South Florida probably signed to play at Alabama within the next couple of years.
Yep. Ryan, the renderings are out on Raiders owner Mark Davis's home that he's going to build. Do you think they're going to have kind of these neutral site games eventually just there at his house whenever that home is built? It's quite the compound.
They just dropped the last trailer for the new James Bond movie.
Yep.
Like they dropped it on Tuesday, and on Wednesday we got a picture of his house, and I was like, "This is the same thing, right? That looks like the Bond villain lair that Daniel Craig's in the trailer." Yeah, it's just I don't know. My thing about these houses, and I've talked to athletes about this. I talked to Shaquille O'Neal about this. Shaq built a house in Orlando that is bigger than Disney World, and it seems like a good idea at the time. But then you can't sell it.
Right. Who are you going to sell it to?
My question is, who the hell is going to buy that house when they inevitably move the Raiders somewhere else again? Who's going to buy that house? I don't know because, Darth Vader probably isn't available. He's the only person I can think of that would buy that house.
Well, you remember Vander Holyfield in Atlanta, that mansion, what was it, like $33 million, whatever. I mean, he went bankrupt, of course, but do you remember the size of that house that he built in Atlanta? It's ridiculous.
Yeah, no, I'm driving right now past Chateau Elan where Road Atlanta is, and I've been in a couple of houses in there that all I could think the whole time I'm walking around is this seems great, but dude, nobody's going to buy this house. Like, I'm not sure how you're going to sell it. But then, I think maybe the trick is you do like Andre Rising, get your girlfriend who'll burn it down for you. That'll take care of it.
Wow.
I'm sorry.
It's not too soon.
Left Lopez. Yeah. I apologize.
Yeah,
too soon. Been 30 years. Too soon.
Ryan McGee on the line with us. By the way, you can check out Marty and McGee Saturday morning, SEC Network and ESPN Radio. These are some of the things, some of the hard-hitting stuff they get into on their show.
I was going to say, this is why I like you guys. We've been on the phone for 5 minutes, and I think we talked about football for about 20 seconds of it. That's fine with me. Keep going.
So we had an interesting conversation with Jordan Rodgers yesterday about some of the quarterbacks in this conference, and he started talking about Matt Corral at Ole Miss, and boy, did it spark some listeners. It got some heated reaction on our text line afterwards. But he said Matt Corral can make all the throws. I think what the confusion was, some of the listeners said that he thought Matt Corral was going to be the number 2 pick in the draft. That's not what Jordan Rodgers was saying. Hey, when I watch Corral on tape, and I've watched Zach Wilson on tape, Corral can make the same throws as Zach Wilson. He was just saying, like, what does Zach Wilson do that Corral can't do? And he just went number 2 overall in the draft. When you see Matt Corral, like, what type of season do you think he's in offensively for Ole Miss, and what do you see in him?
Oh, I think they're going to move the football like crazy. Now, I'll say this. It helped to have Elijah Moore catching the football. Yeah. I'm a big Elijah Moore guy. The Egg Bowl 2 years ago aside, he had one of the greatest seasons any receivers ever had in the history of the SEC last year, and certainly a lot of that had to do with Matt Corral, but also had to do if you really watch what he did after he caught the football. But no, I agree. I would say this, having covered Zach Wilson. My one and only sideline reporting gig regular season was the BYU Coastal game last year because of COVID, they ran out of people to call, and I lived nearby, so they sent me. But I spent a lot of time with Zach Wilson, and I've spent a lot of time with Matt Corral, and I think that there's definitely a demeanor difference. There's definitely a difference in the way they carry themselves. I would say that I would classify Zach Wilson as probably a little more businesslike, but I think that Corral's constant smile and his constant kind of goofiness and his willingness to let it hang out a little bit emotionally during games, I think takes away from the things that Jordan's saying. When I say take away from, I'm not talking about taking away from the talent. I'm talking about taking away from the attention. And so I think that if you really focus on what he's doing on film, and Jordan does that as well as anyone, then yeah, I think he has the chance to be really, really good. They're going to move the ball. And what's striking to me is the relationship he has with Lane Kiffin. When he talks about Kiff, as he calls him, and when Lane Kiffin, whom I've known forever, talks about Corral, there's a different connection there, and it reminds you of potentially some of the great seasons we've seen quarterbacks have. And almost every time you go back and look, and they had a special, almost buddy or father-son connection with their coach. And I certainly would classify Matt Corral and Lane Kiffin in that group.
So with that being said, who's going to be the best quarterback in the league this season? Not who's going to be the best quarterback on the best team. So, I mean, JT Daniels, we get it. Georgia's defense is going to be way better than Ole Miss. But how would you answer, like, just take away everything else? Not who's got the best coach, best defense. Who's going to be the best quarterback in this conference?
Well, I think it's a great question, and the good news is there's a lot of them. I mean, if you work at the SEC office, I like JT Daniels a lot. I think that what he did in a very short period of time, and it's not even just that. You go back to, I was just reading Kirk Herbstreit's book, and it's so good. And what Kirk is so good talking about is the mental strain of being the five-star guy out of high school, and then choosing to go to the flagship school of your state, which is what Kirk did with Ohio State. And it took him 4 years to figure that out and to figure out how to deal with that emotionally and mentally and eventually, performance-wise. JT Daniels is a very similar situation. That dude, I don't cover recruiting. So when I know about a guy in high school, I know he must be really, really good. And we all knew about JT Daniels. And then he went to USC. and got his butt handed to him as a freshman starter, and then got to Georgia and got hurt, had to sit on the bench. And so to see what he did in a relatively short period of time last year was impressive. Now, the problem they got is Georgia's wide receiver core is hurt. So, not only that, you got to start the season with Clemson, but I think Daniels has the chance to be the guy. Oh, and by the way, Alabama's quarterback apparently is already a millionaire, according to Saban. So I think he's pretty good too.
Yeah, remember, I didn't say who was the richest. I said who's the best quarterback.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and listen, it goes back to what you said at the start of this. We can talk about all this other stuff all we want. At the end of the day, when we get to Thanksgiving, we'll be talking about Alabama and Alabama's quarterback and can he win the Heisman? Because that's just every year in September we try to talk about other people and other stuff, and every year at the end of November we're talking about the same thing again.
Talking to Ryan Mcgee from ESPN as we get ready for the SEC season. And Ryan, something dawned on me as you were talking about the richest and things like that. It's such a new thing. I recently drove through Knoxville, and I saw a couple billboards of players for Tennessee, not superstar household names across the country, but they're known in Knoxville, and they were doing an ad for a pizza company. It just hit me for the first time. Hey, this is it. It's going. The people are putting this into play. Well, what do you think will be the reaction among fans if there's a high profile player? I'm not saying necessarily for Tennessee, but any team, high profile player maybe has a bad game or underachieving kind of season, but yet he's on these billboards all over town. I just wonder what that dynamic could be like. It sounds like it's fraught with a little bit of worry there if I'm a coach or an inner circle person.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to show their butt. I mean, and it's just always that way. And, I remember back when I was covering NASCAR full time, and the drivers would beg NASCAR to quit posting. They look like golf. Every Monday you pick up the paper, and it would list the finishing order of the race, and it would show how much the driver won for his position. And I remember the drivers begging NASCAR to quit posting that stuff. And finally I asked them guys, I said, why? And they said, we're tired of hearing about why are you making X amount of money and you finished 23rd? And why are you making so much money and you finished last? And you haven't won in 2 years. And why'd you? And I think that the kids at these colleges are going to deal with that a little bit. But the reality is if people do their research, and they won't, but if they do their research, the overwhelming majority of the NIL deals to this point have been social media based. It's a kid, sitting on the couch holding a bag of whatever or a chicken sandwich or something, and the average deal is about $10,000. And most of the kids I talk to, their deal's like $5,000-$6,000, and so no one's going to care about that. All they're going to care about is why are you on a billboard and you threw 4 interceptions to get so-and-so. But I would also say that's getting them ready for the league. To me, ultimately, for football players, for the really good, high-profile, should-be-good football players, all of this is training for the next level. It's managing money, even though it's not a lot of money. It's dealing with a management, company or a manager or an agent or whatever. It's sitting down with marketing people. It's understanding what your own personal brand is. And you're going to make mistakes along the way. And so to me, how to pay taxes, all that stuff. To me, it's all training for their ultimate goal, which is to get to the next level. And even if they don't play in the league, it's pretty good training for life. So we'll see. But, yeah, that's a really long way of saying, yeah, there's going to be some jerks. But, whatever, they were going to be jerks no matter what the deal was.
Yeah, and there's going to be a learning process, like you said. Some people are going to have great success. Other people are going to learn from other people's pitfalls, perhaps. Ryan, you got Tennessee playing Bowling Green. You've got Vanderbilt playing ETSU. Both programs right now, they need W's, right? I'm looking in the crystal ball when the league adds the 2 teams in Oklahoma and Texas. There's going to be another huge discussion on how to schedule. There's no perfect way to do it. If you were in charge and you could hit the reset button, what's the best way to schedule in the SEC once it goes to 16?
Well, I really hate giving Peter Burns any credit for anything. But Peter Burns is the one. It was the morning after the news broke about Texas and Oklahoma, and that pod system, I think was his term. But he designed that in his hotel room, on a sheet of paper, and it's the best one I've seen yet. I just want to make sure that everyone gets to see everyone. I was talking to Coach Stoops at Kentucky about this. Texas A&M has been in the league 10 years, and Kentucky's played them once. That's crazy. What's the point of even having them in the old school rivalries that need to be taken care of? I understand that, there's a lot of people want to protect the divisions. I get all that. But, in North Carolina where I live, I grew up on Tobacco Road, and Wake Forest and North Carolina had to schedule a home-and-home non-conference pair of games so they could. That's crazy. And so to me, you have to design something that protects your regional rival. Georgia and Auburn need to play. Tennessee and Alabama need to play. All that. But you also need to figure out a way that, you benefit from this. I can't imagine what it's going to be like when Florida goes to Norman, right? Or when Texas comes to Knoxville. But you just have to make sure those games are played and make sure they're played, not once every 20 years.
So you need more conference games, is what you're saying.
Yeah, you need more conference games, and isn't it funny? I joke about being old, but we've all been around long enough to remember when everybody, just all the old gray-headed guys in the multicolored blazers, just raised hell about divisions. You're going to divide the league in half, and the Eastern and Western and the conference championship game, and now those same people are, you can't get rid of divisions. That's tradition. But to me, those days might be done because you're getting so big. More conference games and make sure that everybody gets to play everyone else semi-regularly.
We're talking to Ryan Mcgee, ESPN and the SEC Network. Ryan, I've decided whenever the new SEC actually happens, which I believe is probably going to be next year, that Texas and Tennessee should meet in a neutral site game to battle for the right to be called UT. That's what I want to see.
I said that. I was out in Omaha for the College World Series when Texas and Tennessee played, and I said the same thing. I said they should play for the right. You get the right for UT for a year.
I
went to UT in Knoxville, but yet I'm in Austin all the time. I would love nothing more than that. Just so when I live just north of Columbia, South Carolina. I live in Charlotte, and so they got their USC, but then USC in California is the USC, or it's the other way around. So yeah, I say play out right. We'll do Friday Night Lights. Put them out on the field in the middle of Texas or in the middle of Tennessee, and line the cars up with the headlights on, and the winner gets to keep UT for the next year.
I love it. I think that would be fantastic. Speaking of this UT in Tennessee, as Willie mentioned, they play Bowling Green tonight. I don't know how much we're really going to learn about this Josh Heupel offense, but what did you think about Joe Milton being named the starter?
I think it's the right thing. I think you got to, at this point, pick your guy and roll with it. It looked just a couple of weeks ago, there might be a rotation, or he might have to wait his turn. And I think it's a steep order for him because he's relatively late into the building versus a lot of the other guys. But I think it's time to go with it. And listen, you guys know this. I write the bottom 10 for ESPN.com. Bowling Green is a really good team to try whatever you want to try. Now that being said, you better whip them because they're awful. And they've been awful for a long time, and their head coach is a really good guy. He has burned down offenses from Virginia Tech to everywhere he's ever been. So this should be a showcase for Tennessee, and I think it's the right call to go with Milton. If you know he's going to be the guy, then go with it. And I'm a Richard Petty. I asked him one time, why'd you put Kyle Petty in a Cup Series car when he was 18 years old? He goes, because he's not here to do anything else. He's here to be a Cup Series driver. We know he's going to be the guy, and if he wrecks a bunch, whatever. At some point, the talent should take over. And so that's how I feel about Milton. Throw him in there. And again, this is he's not playing against air tonight, but Bowling Green is as close to air as you can play with actually having 11 guys on the field across from you.
Well said on that. So taking the 3-point spreads aside, the Georgia, Clemson, UCLA, LSU, we'll put them aside. What SEC team this weekend do you think is possibly in a position to get upset?
Well, I mean, I know you said not to talk about it. I'm going to do it anyway. I think LSU. I think LSU's in trouble.
Really?
You know, they already were struggling last year. You know, UCLA has already played a game, and I understand Hawaii's not very good, but UCLA looked really good. But I think there's a lot to be said for playing a game. You know, no matter who it's against or whatever, I think there's something to be said for going through the routine. And then speaking of routine, LSU had to take a bus ride to Houston. And normally that bus ride's about 3.5, 4 hours, and it took almost 12 hours. And they're practicing in the wrong place. They're getting on a plane and going to the West Coast. You know, they are clearly more talented than UCLA is. You know, they still have guys on that roster from one of the best teams in the history of college football 2 years ago, Derek Stingley Jr. and those guys. But I don't know. It just has that game has thin ice written all over it because of a lot of reasons, and none of which has to do with talent. It's just about the unfortunate circumstance LSU has found itself in.
You're making me rethink things, Ryan. I just want you to know that because I've been on the LSU bandwagon since SEC media days. So, but you're scaring me here. I got to get.
They get 9 practices.
I know.
They really only had nine full practices, and LSU barely got a couple in Baton Rouge, and then had to go to Houston. And I mean, I don't know. It's already been an arduous journey. But that being said, everything everyone endured a year ago, maybe this feels like nothing.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It feels like something to me.
I got to squeeze in one NASCAR question because I don't like this. I know why they're doing it, but moving the numbers forward on the new car to make more room for sponsorship, it looks weird. I really hope it doesn't last, but it probably will. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, they're trying to create value for sponsors, but it just feels like a reach. I mean, I don't know. I talk to sponsors, and the ones I've talked to, I mean, they're not all jazzed up about it. I mean, it's not like it's. I understand why. It just feels like there's always like a couple of unnecessary decisions. And NASCAR's there's always one thing attached to everything. And you're like, why did they do that? And I don't know. And that wasn't a good one. You know, rolling out the first one we saw was the Kurt Busch car, and all Monster did was take the exact same logo and just slide it over.
Right.
If they'd done something dramatic and made it look cool, it would have been one thing. But they just took the big M thing from the rear quarter panel and just moved it over on the door. I'm curious to see if people get more creative with it, but it looks like it would make the car lean forward. Years ago, when Bill Elliott drove that McDonald's car, it always bothered me that the golden arches, I always wanted them to turn around upside down because it looked aerodynamically wrong to me. Like the arches should be scooping up air. You should have turned them around. I don't know. You're right. It just looks super weird, but maybe I'm old. I don't know.
Ryan, good stuff as always. We appreciate it. We'll be watching your work, SEC Nation tonight, also SEC Network, ESPN Radio, Marty and Mcgee on Saturday. Thanks for doing this, and we'll chat soon.
9 a.m., Marty Mcgee, College Football Hall of Fame. Y'all watch it now before they cancel us.
That's not happening. Appreciate it. Ryan Mcgee, ESPN and SEC Network. Gosh, I love when he comes on the show.
He's awesome.
Fantastic. He is so good. All right, we'll come back. We'll come back and wrap up the first hour of Darren, Daunic, and Chase. But first, a word from Will.
All right. It is good to be back. And let me tell you once again about my friends at Loan Pronto. Just a reminder, mortgage rates have taken the nosedive. Same situation as it's been. It's back to the lowest in history. So don't miss this chance to lock in a lower house payment this fall with Loan Pronto right now. Call Loan Pronto today. Take advantage of that super popular zero-cost refi program you hear me harping on all of the time on our show. You can get a rate with an APR in the low twos. No junk fees, no closing costs. Yes, they pay the closing costs. Who else is doing this? Loan Pronto's all-digital process is so easy. No paperwork required. Very, very little paperwork. Most loans get closed in 14 days. And if you act right now, you can even skip the next 2 house payments. So think about that bonus right now for your fall. Call Loan Pronto, 615-499-5780. That's 615-499-5780. Or go to loanpronto.com. If your current mortgage rate starts with a 3, you need to act right now. 615-499-5780 or loanpronto.com. Equal housing lender.
NMLS 1661781. Subject to lender approval. Not all loans eligible for zero-cost option.
Ryan Mcgee, back here on Darren, Daunic, and Chase, presented by Curation CBD. Curation CBD products curated for life. Don't forget, you don't want to miss the 2021 Middle Tennessee Highland Games and Celtic Festival. That'll be Saturday, September 11th at Percy Warner Park, a fun-filled day full of Celtic games, children's activities, Celtic music, food, Scottish and Irish dancers, local and regional vendors, and much more. Tickets are on sale right now. Visit mid10games.com for more details. So what do you guys make of, Chase, you know the conversation we had with Jordan Rogers yesterday about Matt Corral. JT Daniels is very talented. And, of course, like he said, Ryan just said, Alabama in the end, if they're undefeated and they haven't had a hiccup against Texas A&M or what have you, we'll be talking about Bryce Young, because that's just how it works, right? It's usually the best player, or in this case, usually for the Heisman, best quarterback on the best team in the country. It's just how it works.
Yeah.
Didn't say it was fair. I don't love it, quite honestly. To me, it's like I thought we were trying to acknowledge and reward literally the best player, not the best player on the best team, the best player.
Right. It needs to be individual. But so many times the best team gets lumped into, an individual conversation. Like how many times when we're talking about Hall of Fame, does it come up, well, did they win a Super Bowl? Well, a Super Bowl is a team accomplishment. It's not just the one person, but it factors in. So,
what happens, too, in the college game these days especially, a quarterback could put up numbers that look really, really gaudy, but his team might be, 7-5 or 6-6, something like that, just because in this day and age there's a lot of teams that rack up a lot of offensive stats but give up a lot of points. Tennessee could very well be one of those teams this year. Their offensive stats might look really good at the end of the season, but the question will be how many wins are they able to get in that area. So how you judge a quarterback is a really tricky thing, especially on the college level.
Who's the best quarterback in the NFL?
Right now, today?
Yep.
We know the answer.
Yeah, well, say it. Say it out loud.
Pat Mahomes.
Yeah. How much should we talk about him in college? Texas Tech. Why?
He put up a lot of
good?
numbers.
Was he not good?
Team wasn't good.
Yeah, team was a 6-6 team.
Coach,
right. Is that right?
So many teams, because there's only 30. Though? There's only 32 teams in the NFL, or whatever it is. It's 32. There's 100 and something teams in college football, so your team has to be good, really, to get on the radar. Most of the time.
Right, but is that the right thing? Just think about that. We never talked about Patrick Mahomes in college. Never. We saw Texas Tech scoring 59 points and losing by 2 touchdowns to Oklahoma. But we weren't talking about
his numbers were really good.
Right.
That's what I'm talking about. That's why I bring that up, is because there are a lot of quarterbacks. Like, I even think you could, to a degree, you could say, well, look at Ken Seals. He put a lot of passing yards up. He did. He had some decent, for a true freshman, he put up, the yards don't look bad. But
he's on no one's radar.
They didn't translate to any wins. And you got to make key plays at key times. You got to limit your turnovers. You got to make sure you convert the big third downs, make the right decisions. That's what separates the great quarterbacks. It's so easy to look at the passing yards and the touchdowns. That's part of it, but it's not the whole part of it. Like, Ole Miss would be a great example this year. They're going to roll up tons of offensive numbers. We know that before it even starts, but can they make the key plays and win a couple extra games?
And I hear what you're saying. Like, is it right? The answer is no, because it's an individual award, or we're talking about individuals here and individual accomplishments. But it's never going to go away. There's no way to change that. The team aspect and what the team does and wins and losses is always going to factor in. I don't see a way around it.
There's also an occasional guy that comes along that does clearly elevate his team and lead them to more wins than they would have. I think, like Ryan was sort of sarcastically saying about Alabama, they're always going to have somebody that's good to start with, and they're always going to have great players around that person. So it's almost like it's up to that guy to screw it up more than anything else. He's going to have good numbers, and they're going to win a certain amount of games. But can they? Their goal is perfection and national title. That's a very thin margin for error, and that's where those guys deserve a lot of credit. It's one thing to be really good, but to get them over the hump and win, that's the goal there. But like a Johnny Manziel, when he was at Texas A&M, they had a good team, but they didn't have the roster that some of these other teams have. But he elevated them to some wins that they would not have otherwise had.
Right. Well, and you bring up Mahomes. I mean, what was even though he was putting up those numbers and they weren't winning, but you make the argument now that you take him off the Chiefs, they're a completely different team.
Yeah, they're not a playoff team.
No, not at all.
So that's when you say, well, nothing's going to change. Well, yeah, it can change. I mean, to me, it seems if you're a voter, it's lazy. It's just laziness. I mean, I thought the whole point was to actually identify the best player in the country. Because, I mean, if you're really getting down to it, now this is not a great example because he played at the Ohio State. Chris Sanders would definitely want me to say that. I mean, if you watched Chase Young in college, I mean, Chase Young was ridiculous. Chase Young didn't have a chance at winning that award because, one, he plays on the wrong side of the ball. And I get it. It's not like people didn't know who he was. They did. But he had no chance. If you watch that guy, he was ridiculous. I mean, absolutely ridiculous on the field. You talking about disruptor? I mean, there's no doubt every team went into that game against Ohio State and said, whatever side of the ball, wherever he's at, go far away from him. Stay far, far away from that guy. But
sure.
You think he had a chance? No, he had no chance.
The defensive player is always going to have a huge disadvantage because of just for that fact, just traditionally. I think though that the overall offensive game in college football, let's take Doug Flutie back in the day. He won it. Back then, he was doing some prolific, exciting things in the days where college football offenses weren't scoring a whole lot of points, not as many as they have now. Now I think it's tougher to almost stand out if you're not on that great team because everybody's putting up 30, 35 points a game. At least a lot of the good teams are. Even some of the mediocre teams are scoring 35 but giving up 38. You see what I'm saying? Don't you think that makes it a little cloudier? And so you're almost more reliant on the defense. So maybe we should be looking at the dominating defensive player that can hold these prolific college offenses down.
Or do what I've proposed for many, many years, like have separate awards. Have an offensive award and a defensive award.
A defensive Heisman.
Why should playing on that side of the ball be, discredit? Why should you be knocked down a peg or realize that you have no chance because you're on the wrong side of the ball? Like that's ridiculous to me. I mean,
they have a trophy,
ridiculous.
don't they?
Yeah, they have.
There's some trophies somewhere that recognizes.
They have those awards. The problem is the Heisman has been elevated to this just almost above.
It's in its own category.
Well, it's actually a separate conversation or bigger conversation. Is the NCAA being the powerless entity that it is? That you have this Heisman committee that's not even connected to the sanctioning body. That they do their thing, just like you have the Power 5 conferences that now are bigger than the sanctioning body. I mean, that's just where college football is.
Nothing against, the Bronco Nagurski Trophy or the Chuck Bednarik Award. There's nothing against that, but just what you said. They don't do shows for those. They do a show for the Heisman. Like they put that on national television, right, on Saturday night. Like nothing against those shows. But those awards, and they recognize defensive players. But, I mean, have a separate have your own defensive Heisman. I mean, I don't know. And I know this really didn't start about that. It started really about guys playing on teams where they're just they lose some games and then they don't have a chance anymore because they lose some games. I mean, Justin Herbert, once they lost that Saturday night game on primetime television that we were all watching against Herb Edwards in Arizona State, cross him off the list, right? That was it. Justin Herbert, goodbye. See you later.
That's always been an element, though, playing big in the big game. is always something that when the spotlight's on, if you do well, that influences voters. Always has.
Yeah, and I understand, but I mean, it was like that one loss. You forget it. It was over for him. He had no chance. And you know what? I get it.
I don't remember how he played in that game. Did he play really well? Because I do think there have been scenarios where if you play really well and lose, you still can have people going, "Ooh, man, that guy is really, really good." But if you don't have a good game in the spotlight game, that can definitely cross you off the list.
Come back, head out to Arizona, learn more about the Titans' Week 1 opponent. They'll be hosting the Cardinals. We'll find out more on them with Kent Summers. We'll do that next. Hour number 2, Darren, Daunic, and Chase. Our show presented by Creation CBD. Creation CBD products curated for life. Hopefully in just a moment we'll head out to Arizona and find out a little bit more about the Week 1 opponent for the Titans. Jurrell Casey has decided to call it a career after 9 seasons here, 10 seasons in the NFL. He is going to announce his retirement through the Titans today at 1 o'clock, which is an interesting concept. I'm glad. Obviously, he played, 3 games total for Denver. His entire career was here. He was drafted by the Titans. What a great third-round pick, by the way. Broke down yesterday on Spot Rack all the draft picks by round, right, that are on the 53-man rosters around the NFL.
Right.
It's pretty interesting that third round was second most after first round. Not second round. Ironically, Jurrell Casey was one of those third-round picks back in the day for the Titans. So it does seem like a third round. And by the way, I saw them doing a piece this morning on some of the starters on NFL Network around the league, especially some offensive linemen around the league, and they're undrafted guys. Remember the number on undrafted guys?
Yeah, ask that to Willie. See if Willie can get this.
So we did an exercise. Spot Rack put up on Twitter, like they went through the numbers, and I know all these 53-man rosters are a little bit jacked up right now because of COVID and everything, and some guys are going to come off. But currently, the way they're constructed, they broke down all of, and maybe I didn't see how the details. Maybe they've already included a guy like Ryan Tannehill or what have you, who we know, certain guys that are on COVID list that will be on the roster. But anyway, they broke down just round by round. First round had the most players. We'll come back to this because I think we've got Kent on the line, and we'll learn a little bit more about this Cardinals team, which will be coming to town next Sunday to take on the Titans for Week 1 of the NFL season. Kent Summers is on the line with us from the Arizona Republic, covers the Cardinals. Kent, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing great. Thanks for doing this. A guy we got to know well here with his time with the Titans, signed with Arizona in the offseason. Malcolm Butler, weird turn of events. In fact, we were watching things on Twitter kind of unfold on Tuesday's show where he wasn't at practice, and Cliff Kingsbury was being kind of the word on Malcolm Butler when you guys were asking him questions, and now he's been put on this list. I guess he's retiring. What can you tell us about the Malcolm Butler situation?
Not a ton. There haven't been any details that have come forward since the news broke that he was contemplating retirement because of a quote personal situation. It caught the Cardinals off guard for sure. He was figuring to start at least in the nickel along with Robert Alford and Byron Murphy. There's some speculation that maybe rookie Marco Wilson was going to overtake him for the job, but I don't know if that figured into it. It's all very strange. I don't know if you're an NFL veteran who's been around for a long time if you turn your back on $3.25 million just because your job might be threatened. That sounds a little iffy, but it comes at a time, obviously, that's horrible for the Cardinals, and it comes at a position that's horrible for them. They're even with him, they weren't very deep at cornerback.
Interesting. So what are the expectations? That division is brutal, as you know. There's some really good teams. You could probably argue it is the best division, at least today, looking at it on paper, in the National Football League going into this season. So what are the expectations out in the desert?
Well, I think among fans and media, the expectation for the Cardinals is to make the playoffs. They've gone 5 years out of the playoffs. That's the longest drought in the NFC and tied for the second longest in the league. There's been, slow incremental improvement under Cliff Kingsbury. He took over a team that had won 3 games. They won 5 his first year. They win 8 a year ago, but they were 6-3 at one time last year, and for the second straight year, just collapsed down the stretch, and including the last couple games when it was win and get in, they couldn't win, and not only did they lose, they looked really bad doing it. So it's a critical time. I mean, if they finish out of the playoffs again, You seriously question if they bring Kingsbury back for a fourth season. Not many coaches get that opportunity, and Steve Keim's been the general manager throughout this whole time since the struggle out of the playoffs. So you have to think there could be sweeping changes come. It's a pivotal time in the franchise history here in Arizona for sure.
Why do you think they haven't been able to really be able to establish the run and keep it with one guy? Like David Johnson had his window, and then we all know he started getting hurt and all that. They trade for Kenyon Drake. He burst on the scene, and then that just kind of went away. Do they have that in Chase Edmonds? It's not like he's new. He's been around. I mean, just trying to sustain that running game year after year. How do they feel about Chase Edmonds, and what is James Conner's role going to be on this team?
Yeah, it's been mysterious, their running back situation. I mean, you go to David Johnson, who looked so good in his first couple of years, and has 2,000 yards from scrimmage in the 1 year, and then all of a sudden just fell off the face of the earth. He looked tentative. He looked slow, and so they trade for Kenyon Drake, and they get him, and he looks amazing. In 2019 after they get him from trade, and they start him last year thinking, okay, we found a running back in place of David Johnson, and he suddenly looks like he's lost a step and not nearly as explosive as he was the year before. So it's really strange what's gone on. They love Chase Edmonds. They like him a lot. He's really dynamic. He's a big play threat through both the run and a pass. He's an excellent receiver. His whole thing is just getting a chance, getting the touches, and staying healthy so he gets those touches. They brought Conner in as a backup, as more of a physical force. Edmonds isn't a real big guy at all, so they needed someone like a James Conner. But yeah, it's been pretty strange. In 2019 they were actually a very good running team as Kingsbury sort of switched the offense around after the first month of the season, and they really became run oriented, and I think they would like to get back to that to a certain point. So they feel very good about Chase Edmonds. I think he's really, if he stays healthy, I think he'll put up some decent numbers this year.
AJ Green was an elite receiver for many years in this league, but that's been a lot. I think my hair was a lot darker the last time that he was really an elite receiver because he's just dealt with so many injuries over the years. What do they have, or what do they think they have in A.J. Green? How much of a factor, or how much is he going to factor into this offense, in your opinion?
A lot, if he can stay healthy. They think they have an A.J. Green in his prime. That's what coaches say they've seen through the summer, and when he's been healthy, in training camp. He missed a significant portion of training camp, and Kingsbury hasn't given us any details on any injuries to any of his players, so we don't really know. But I think it was more out of precaution than anything else. They say he is healthy. His teammates rave about him. I mean, basically, you get wait till you see this guy when games start to count. He is what he used to be in his heyday in Cincinnati. So we'll see if that's true. I mean, they've got a pretty dangerous receiving core, even without Larry Fitzgerald. They've got DeAndre Hopkins on the other side. They've got Christian Kirk and Rondale Moore to work inside, two smaller, fast, quick guys. So we'll see. But we seem to say that every year about the Cardinals receivers, that they're excited about what they've got. And in the last couple of years, that group has been disappointing, other than DeAndre Hopkins.
Kent Summers is with us. We're talking about the Arizona Cardinals, and Ken, I want to ask you something specific about Kingsbury that I read about. How much heat is he taking with game management, end of the half, timeouts, coaching decisions, when to challenge, when to go for it, things like that? It looks like he's taking some criticism for that. And how much difference can that make on a team that was 8-8? Just those, maybe a few moves like that could be those extra couple of wins.
Yeah, big difference. I've criticized him heavily for in-game management and decision-making. They haven't handled the clock very well. At times they've been late getting plays in. It's a team that, led the league last year in pre-snap penalties, led the league overall in penalties for 2 years running. And there's a lack of discipline on this team that has to change if they're going to make the playoffs, if they're going to be better than a team that hovers around .500. But certainly, yeah, the in-game management has to get a ton better. And just, I think, having control of the team, or a voice that the team listens to. Last year, and Kyler Murray said this, you didn't know which Cardinal team was going to show up on Sunday. There were times they looked very, very good, and there are times they looked disinterested. And they'd look disinterested at key points late last year when one win puts them in the playoffs. So that's an indictment of the coach, of coaching. So those are all things that have to change this year, and it's one reason I think Kingsbury's job is on the line, or at least should be.
Is that maybe part of the idea in bringing in some veterans like J.J. Watt? Certainly Malcolm Butler would have been one of those kind of guys to try to help the discipline, the attitude, to sort of compensate?
Yeah, that's what they've said, and that's a big reason. They went and got J.J. Watt. They think he can give them that. They get Chandler Jones back from injury, missed 11 games last year with the torn bicep. They think they added that in by trading for center Rodney Hudson, a perennial All-Pro guy from the Raiders. They thought Malcolm Butler would help them at that spot with, a youngish secondary. But, there's also the flip side of that is you wonder, how much leadership from players really plays into it. I mean, J.J. Watt was a great leader, but it didn't help the Texans last year. So it helps a lot better if you play really well, and then the leadership kind of takes care of itself. But if it helps in terms of the week of preparation, of keeping guys on point and in focus and in the playbook, I think that's where it really matters more than, rah on Sunday morning to get guys ready to play that afternoon.
Talking to Kent Summers, the Arizona Republic, and sticking with the defense, Zaven Collins, their first-round pick, the linebacker out of Tulsa. What have you seen out of him through his first camp, and what are the realistic expectations for his rookie year?
We've seen a guy who comes as billed. He's very big, very strong, tall. He can really run for a guy that size. I think the thing that has to make the Cardinals, feel really good about it in the preseason is he didn't look hesitant at all. I mean, he made a couple plays in his 2 appearances that, were really impressive. He just read his keys and went. You didn't see any false steps or look like a guy who was bewildered. But it's a risk. I mean, they named him a starter from day one and said he's going to start in place of Jordan Hicks, a veteran. Hicks is going to play in some schemes. But it's a risk playing Zaven Collins next to Isaiah Simmons, who was, a rookie last year and who really struggled a lot of his rookie season. So you've got 2 real young inside linebackers that the Titans are going to see in week 1. They're very athletic. And Cliff Kingsbury said on draft day, opponents are, it's like the quarterback's going to be looking at a couple of trees standing in the middle of the field. It's going to be difficult to throw around those guys. But, also with their inexperience, you wonder if they can be taken advantage of. We saw that a little bit last year with Isaiah Simmons, especially when they matched up against the 49ers, and Kyle Shanahan really took advantage of that matchup. So it's a risk inside there with the Cardinals. So, but Zaven Collins really, he looks like the real deal. But and the Cardinals have said this, but there's gonna be a learning curve. There are going to be mistakes made.
You wrote a column a few weeks ago about Larry Fitzgerald and that, it's sounding like he is retired and that his career has come to an end, and he's Mr. Arizona Cardinal. There's no doubt about that. And I know that, the last few years, he hasn't been the same productive receiver, or had the same level of production, I should say, that we've seen in the past. Only 409 yards in 13 games and 1 touchdown. But he said in the piece and on an interview with SiriusXM that he didn't have the desire to play anymore. Did you buy that was really the truth, or is it more that the league is basically telling him that his time's come to an end?
No, I think this is his call. I really do think it has far more to do with, like he says, I just don't feel the urge to play. And he's always been a guy who needed that. He's never been, like DeAndre Hopkins, who misses a significant amount of practice time during the season and can still come in and play and feel confident on Sunday in his abilities. Fitz has always been a guy who has to put the work in to feel at the top of his game on Sunday, to feel that confidence, like, okay, I've done this. I've worked as hard as anybody in the league. I'm ready for this. And, for a guy, I think he just turned 38 a couple of days ago, and to say, I don't feel that urge. That's really the most interesting thing he said about retirement in all these months. And so I take him at his word, and he's a guy that has a ton of interests. And it really sounds like to me he's ready to pursue those full time, especially in the business world. He's a part owner of the Phoenix Suns here. He's very involved in that franchise. He's probably golfing every day, all of those things. I'm not ruling out a return midseason, either here or somewhere else. I guess that could happen. But I don't know a lot of other teams out there who think, hey, we really could use an old slot receiver who's lost a step. That's going to be the difference for us going down the stretch. And that's not to denigrate Fitz or his career. That's just who he is right now.
Yeah. Well, Kent, we appreciate the time. As always, good to talk to you again. And looking forward to the matchup next week. Going to be fun.
It should be fun. Thanks for having me, guys.
Absolutely. Kent Summers, the Arizona Republic, azcentral.com, a columnist for them, and has been around the Arizona Cardinals for quite some time. Appreciate him taking the time. We will come back and discuss some of that. Again, silly underdog picks coming up at noon. But first, as summer heats up, so does the sports betting action at BetMGM. I told you I hit my first bet. I put in a game last night, ready for college football this weekend. You can sign up now using the code 1025GAME, and your first wager is totally risk-free, up to $1,000. Place your bets on all the exciting showdowns in MLB, MLS, and more sports from around the globe. When you register with BetMGM, you'll get access to a variety of parlay selection features, live betting options, player props, and daily boosted odds specials on all the big games. From breathtaking goals to colossal home runs, the king of sportsbooks takes everything to a whole new level of excitement. Simply download the BetMGM app or go to BetMGM.com. Enter that code 1025GAME to get back up to $1,000 on your very first wager. New customer offer, paid and free bets. Must be 21 years or older. Must be in Tennessee. Visit BetMGM.com for a full list of terms and conditions. For problem gambling support, call the Tennessee Red Line at 800-889-9789.
Good stuff there from Kent Summers. An opportunity right now for you to win a pair of tickets to see Three Doors Down with special guest Seether at Ascend Amphitheater on Saturday, September 25th. Saturday, September 25th, Ascend Amphitheater, Three Doors Down, and special guest Seether. Caller number 6. Caller number 6. This is what happens when you just listen to the show and you're not prompted and told when to listen for a giveaway. Caller 6, 615-737-1025. You get rewarded. That's our phone line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Darren Mcfarlane, Willie Daunic, Chase McCabe with you. It's pretty interesting stuff there from Kent Summers. One stood out to me, the A.J. Green comments. Like, they really feel that comfortable, that high on A.J. Green that he can be the old A.J. Green? Huh? Like, wow, that would be quite the move if he turns out to return, to be the A.J. Green of 4 years ago.
I think you can convince yourself of these things while it looks good in practice, but, the history will show it gets so hard for anybody to be able to stay healthy, and certainly he has had that trouble. But, I think about the same thing. I don't know if you guys discussed the article that Arthur Blank did the interview with Jeff Schultz in The Athletic about the frustration that grew over Julio Jones not being able to practice, and they were just ready to turn the page. We've all convinced ourselves that it's going to be awesome with Julio Jones on one side and A.J. Brown on the other, and sure, Ryan Tannehill and Derrick Henry.
Yep.
And I think it's got a really good chance to be, but it's not a guarantee.
There's a reason
just never
Arizona,
know.
Atlanta let go of him, right? They traded him, right? There's a reason.
Right. So the narrative can be really exciting, and then the story doesn't turn out the way you hope it will. I wonder what will happen with A.J. Green. To me, if they got a great half a season out of him, that would be noteworthy.
You know what stat really stands out to me on A.J. Green from last year is if he played in all 16 games in Cincinnati, he was targeted 104 times and only caught 47. Mm-hmm. That is
big drop.
That is huge. With and he's targeted in his career. He's been targeted a lot. Over actually only 1 year has he not been targeted over 100 times, and that's just because he played 9 games in 2018. But the catch percentage is a lot higher in previous years, where it was well under 50% last year. And
but if you really look at his career, even when he was putting up numbers. His first year, he was targeted 111 times, caught 65 balls. Second year, 164 times, caught 97. 178 times, caught 98.
That's a lot.
Caught 98. 117, caught 69. 132, caught 86. 166. 143, and 75. So I ask you, what's different? What's different than basically – what it looks like every year of his career,
what's
for the most part?
Yeah, but he's been above 50%. 56, 59, 55, 59, 65, 66. 45.2%. That's what's different. He's well below 50% in making those catches. So the catch rate has gone down. That's what's different.
It's 32. Didn't have Joe Burrow for a second half of the season. I don't remember who was their quarterback. Finley. I don't know who was. I don't remember who was.
Yeah, I think it was
center.
Well, but as you say those
Achilles
numbers,
Smith.
Guys, it seems to me that the top guys tend these days to get a little higher catch rate than that. In the mid-50s is not any great shakes. Like, I think if you notice, some of the best guys are close to 70,
right,
or at least to 66.
Exactly.
That's what you're looking for the best guys. Now, there is something to be said for just you throw it to them enough times, you get the big plays. But all that said, I'm going to believe it when I see it. In terms of fantasy, am I going to jump out and look at him? No, I don't think so. But I found it interesting talking about Kyler Murray and Cliff Kingsbury and some of the things that Arizona did to shoot themselves in the foot. a bunch last year. The pre-snap penalties, the mistakes, the mismanagement of the clock, the going for it. That's the type of thing that could always hinder you if you don't fix it, and you wonder, can it be fixed under this coaching staff? I'd love to hear somebody like Tim Hasselbeck give his thoughts on that. He's always been a little bit wary and skeptical of Kingsbury,
right.
And I think he's been proven right. Just from the very, very start, he had his questions about that very aspect. I think Lane Kiffin would be the first to tell you that he goofed a lot of stuff when he was with the Raiders with game management and timeouts and all of these things that are really important. I think Mike Rabel's he's shown improvement in that area. I don't think he was a master at that at the very, very beginning. So will Kingsbury improve in that area? If he does, then maybe that's what it takes for a talented group with Kyler Murray to get over the hump.
Well, if he's going to improve, it's this year. Like, it's got to be. I mean,
at least if you believe that interview.
Yeah,
right?
It
can't seem like they don't get to the playoffs. At least the way I took that interview was he kind of feels like Kingsbury's not making it.
Yeah, that's exactly where I was going with that. That was my biggest takeaway from that interview is that seat's hot. I mean, they got to perform. And you're asking a team in the best division in football
to make the playoffs.
Or
your coach gets fired.
Yeah. But I mean, it goes back to like I've said with the Bears. I think their biggest the thing that's holding them back the most is their head coach and their GM. I think the thing that has held the Arizona Cardinals back is their head coach. So I don't know if they can get over that hump. Even though you are throwing in there that this is the best division in football and they got to compete with L.A. and Seattle and San Francisco.
But that's why you hired Kingsbury.
Right.
And you went out and drafted Kyler Murray because you made that hire. And you were supposed to be, unstoppable on offense. And, offense has not been their issue. I mean, it's not like they haven't been really good on offense. But, what was we just talked about it earlier. Guess who was the head coach when nobody was talking about Patrick Mahomes at Texas Tech?
It was Cliff Kingsbury.
Yeah, and what was their problem? Why weren't they better than 6-6 when they were scoring 50-something points a game? Because Cliff Kingsbury seems to have an issue with trying to figure out that you have to play defense as well. And
game management.
It's not just the defense; it's that game management.
That's a good
game
point.
Management when you're playing a track meet, it becomes really important. The clock management and some of the things you can do to put your defense in a bit of a better position. It's tough to play defense going in, but what can you do to improve their chances and let it mess with that offense? It's a really interesting offense to go up against if you're the Titans with this revamped defense, with a test. Are you going to be able to get to the passer more? Kyler Murray's not exactly the easiest guy to get back there. He's going to run all over the place. And they're going to create some really tough matchups for the young defensive backs. Think about DeAndre Hopkins, and just presumably you're going to get a healthy A.J. Green to start the season. It'd be different if they played the Titans in Week 8. Yeah. And maybe A.J. Green by then showing signs of his age or wear and tear, but he might be as fresh as he's going to be all season. So you got some veteran guys that you have to cover with a lot of really young defensive backs.
They got 4 legit receivers to going into this game.
So start naming your defensive backs for the Titans. Is Farley going to be ready to go to cover one of those 4?
Well, I mean, even if he is, he's a rookie. Like that's
exactly.
Who's your 4 legit receivers
for Arizona?
Yeah.
Well, DeAndre Hopkins, Christian Kirk, Rondale Moore, A.J. Green.
Rondale Moore is for sure a legit target. Legit, like you've already
deemed just because
him as somebody you've got to pay close attention to.
Yeah, I mean they thought that
they have a lot of 4 wide
in the NFL, but he's. I mean, I'm just asking. In that offense, you think Rondale Moore is like a legit, like somebody you've got to make sure
he's
the
49th. He's the 49th overall pick in the draft. I get he's a rookie, and Farley's a rookie too. But you're asking them to play big minutes and big time minutes. I mean, he's going to get thrown in there now. He has the luxury because he has DeAndre Hopkins ahead of him. He has A.J. Green ahead of him. But, yeah, I mean, I'm saying he's legit because they took him 49th overall, which means they think he's legit.
Well, he's probably going to be in the slot behind Kirk. So, I mean, I don't even know how much. I mean, I can't imagine Rondale Moore factoring in much in this.
So you
Although
don't think he's going to play?
They run some
I didn't
four.
say
They
he
run
wasn't
some
gonna play.
four wide receiver.
You said they
they
have
run
four
wide
legit.
receiver sets.
You said they have 4 legit. Saying I don't know how legit Rondale Moore. He's never caught a pass in the NFL, so I have no idea. I mean, if you want to say he's legit because of he was drafted, in the top 50, okay. But I mean, in that offense, I mean, I don't know how much Rondale Moore is going to bite them. Maybe he does. I don't know how much attention the Titans are really talking about Rondale Moore in that room. I mean, I would think, Kirk for sure is way ahead of him, I would think. But I mean, I guess we're going to find out. But I don't know. I hesitate to give that much props to a guy who's never caught a ball in the league.
Well, okay, let's start with the obvious though. Who covers Hopkins? That's where you have to start.
That's where you have to start and spend most of your time.
I mean, I would guess now it's Janoris Jenkins.
I guess is that ideal?
I would think so.
It's not ideal, but I think that's what it is.
Is there such a thing as an ideal person to try to slow down DeAndre Hopkins?
I also don't know that. What you want is just like we were talking about with AJ Green. You want them to have to throw to him a bunch of times. He's going to catch some passes, but you want that batting average. You want that percentage to be closer to 50 than 75 on a given day.
So
make him work. Make there be some inefficiencies there. Don't let him get the big plays. There's a lot there. And the other question is, are you having somebody like Jenkins, if that's what you want to do? Is he following DeAndre Hopkins all over the field, wherever he lines up? Because you know that in a perfect scenario, you'd like to try to get Hopkins matched up against one of the real young guys, like Fulton or Farley, whoever they have in there.
Yeah. I mean, in Fulton, Fulton. Right now, I guess the starters are Janoris Jenkins and Fulton. Are those the 2 starters? Are you putting Fulton in the slot then?
I think we all know that it's a very big question mark, and I'm just pointing out that here you go in the first game of the year, expectations really high, and here comes a guy that can roll up a lot of passing yards, and you got some really tricky guys that you have to cover, especially if AJ Green is a factor.
Right.
Whereas, he really hadn't been a factor the last couple of years that really changes the game. But if he has some sort of resurgence and he's another guy, that's a tough offense. Could be a really tough offense to stop.
Could be. I think it's going.
I think it would be.
I mean,
well, that's where the pre-snap penalties and the mistakes. That's what's helped. That's what has hurt Arizona. They can look really good, but they have hurt themselves. They can have good yards and look very good, but end up goofing up. And you have to force them in some mistakes.
I would say there's no doubt that we're going to find out how much this defense has improved, because in preseason it's looked great and they've been praised, and rightfully so. It's the preseason, but it is what it is. That's all they can do. So they've gone out there and they've taken care of business and looked really good in the preseason. I think they either gave up the fewest or one of the they're at the very top of the league of giving up the fewest amount of points and yards in the preseason. That's all they can do. That's the 3 games that were on their schedule, and it was preseason. Now we're going to find out, because Arizona and Seattle, those 2 teams can score at will, and it doesn't matter how good your defense is. So we're going to find out how much better they are, because I don't know how you go about trying to slow down Arizona's offense. I don't know, because I don't know if you truly can, because where do you start? Okay, we just said it, DeAndre Hopkins. The guy's going to get targeted double-digit times in that game. He's going to get double-digit targets, period. And Kyler Murray, okay, you want to try to slow down the pass. Let's say A.J. Green is a factor. Let's say he's completely healthy and he is a factor. And you've got, a guy like Christian Kirk as well. Oh, and you've got Chase Edmonds in the backfield. Well, all that to know that even if Kyler Murray doesn't have anything and you think you've got everything contained downfield, what can Kyler Murray do?
Can beat you with his legs.
Just take off running.
Mm-hmm.
Which, how many times did he have 100 yards rushing in a game last year? I mean, I
think if I'm devising a game plan, I do not want to get beat by anyone other than him running. I think you have to hope that you can contain their running backs, whatever combination of Connor and is it Edmonds? You have to try to take that away. And then you have to try to force some mistakes. They're going to get some yards. There's no question. But how do those drives end? Can you get a couple turnovers? Can you force some field goals? Can you put Kingsbury in a position where he's got to make some tough calls and maybe they show up like they did last year and are shaky in that area? I think that's what you have to do and hope that your offense is ready to rev it up and put up its customary 30 points.
All right, Darren, if you had to guess.
Didn't he run for almost like 1,000 yards last year?
819, but guess how many times he went over 100 rushing.
Well, my guess is because I had him in fantasy, I think I remember a lot of times he got very close but didn't break the 100-yard seal, so probably twice.
Once. 106 yards against the Dolphins. They actually lost that game.
How many times was he between 80 and 99 yards in a game?
Between 80 and 99 will also surprise you.
Not well. If he had 800 yards and he had 100 once, that puts the average more like in the 50s.
I mean it right because he 91 against San Francisco in the first game, but then it was only 67, 29, 78, 31, 74, 67, 106, 61, 15, 31, 15, 47, 29, 75, 3.
Okay.
So
I know late in the like the last month of the season, he was hurt, banged up.
Yeah.
He was not the same.
Right.
It was clearly he
and
was
that
out
certainly
there.
hurt them.
Yeah, it hurt him bad. Wasn't the same quarterback.
To something you said earlier, Darren, I am curious on, yes, DeAndre Hopkins he's going to be the number one, and he's going to be targeted a lot. He had 160 targets last year for them. But if A.J. Green is healthy and he's in there, Kirk does his thing, if what I think is true and Rondale Moore is a factor, then the hope is those targets are going to go down. The ball's going to be spread around. You're still going to rely on DeAndre Hopkins being the number one, but that makes it even tougher. Maybe not so much for the Titans because it's the first game, but if they're spreading the ball around more, I mean, it's going to make it tougher for defenses to guard that offense because you're going to have multiple targets. It's what we've talked about here. If everything goes the way that everybody hopes that it does, that Tannehill's going to have even more places to throw the ball, and so you're not going to be able to necessarily focus in on one guy, even though everybody knows 22 is going to be the bell cow.
Congratulations, Brian Hilgert. Brian was very smart. He was just listening to the show. He wasn't being prompted to listen at a certain time to give something away. He was just listening, and he got rewarded for it. He was lucky caller 6. Brian, go enjoy that great show at Ascend Amphitheater on that Saturday night in late September. Enjoy it. Thanks for listening. We'll come back, wrap up the second hour of Darren, Daunic, and Chase next. Back here on the DDC, it's presented by Curation CBD. Curation CBD products curated for life. Don't forget, Nashville SC 94.9, the official English radio home of the Nashville Soccer Club. You can listen in tomorrow as Nashville SC will take on New York City at Nissan Stadium. Pregame starts at 6:15. The match begins at 6:30. So what time did you get into town? Today, last night? Because when we talked to you at the end of the show yesterday, you said you were still in Massachusetts, so you were a long ways away.
Yeah, it was an interesting ride because I hit Waze. I dropped Aaron and Mahoney off at the airport after we left Evie at the dorm, so a very emotional time. It's starting to rain. You're starting to get the effects of the storm.
Inside and outside of the car, starting to rain.
Oh, big time. We were checking our phones in the morning. The first thing we noticed was about 9 o'clock in the morning, they'd already postponed the Mets game in New York. So they knew that whole area was going to get blanketed by rain.
But that's a good thing, though, right? Because that's not a loss. Well, it's not a loss. I mean, yeah. So that's
well when you're playing the Marlins, you kind of need to play them if you want to attempt to win some games.
Okay.
You need to play them.
By the way, I saw pictures of Times Square and the subway. Man, they got a lot more rain than we did. Woo!
Oh, big time. So I don't know. We had the guy put Waze on the list last Friday. I don't know if Waze accounted for the storm, but they sent me back straight across Massachusetts and New York. I went near Buffalo, and then down through Ohio, through Erie, Pennsylvania on Interstate 90. So it sent me around. And so really, once I got out of Massachusetts, I had no rain whatsoever. I was clear skies, no traffic coming all the way down. And it really didn't add. In fact, it shaved off some time based on the ways to go that way. So, at first, you would think, well, that can't be the fastest way to go to Boston. But it was. So I had a good ride. Now, it still takes, close to 16 hours. So I got to Louisville last night at about 3 o'clock Eastern time. So in my mind, I'm like, well, it's only 2 o'clock. So I'm gonna use the pick up the hour. Got up early this morning and drove the rest of the way from near the Louisville airport. So on the other side of Louisville, so it's a little less than 3 hours from there. So I being the minor league baseball player that I was, Darren, I'm used to the late night drives. Mm-hmm. And my family always did cross-country driving, so I've always not really minded a long drive. So I'm not going to turn around and do it again next week, but it wasn't that bad.
Did you take my advice in the group text? You didn't stop in East St. Louis and ask for directions, did you?
Well, we didn't go to East St. Louis when you're going from Nashville to Boston. But
well, I mean, no, I didn't know. I didn't know where Waze was going to take you. I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
I mean, that would have been a pretty long way out of the way just to do that.
But no. And, of course, that's kind of the beauty of Waze is you don't really have to ask. I can certainly remember my dad when I was a kid getting out and asking for directions at a gas station.
Sure.
And, boy, you get a random – sometimes the people are really good at giving you directions, sometimes not so much.
You get like a
Kirby.
Kirby.
Really well.
Yep.
And you get back in the car and you're like, what did he just say?
And you realize they have no clue. Yeah. Like a Kirby. Can you imagine Kirby all the times he's given directions over the years and people never got to their destination? Yeah, you're right.
So I kept punching in the Waze when it was telling me, you're heading for Buffalo, 300 miles. Like Buffalo doesn't really seem like it's on the way to Nashville. So I just kept punching in. Like, you sure we're going to Nashville, right, Waze?
So we
are going to Nashville.
You question Waze.
Well, I just double checked. I was like, they got to be telling me something.
Did you think Waze was asleep at the wheel, or I mean?
No, I think it was. I'm thankful because I didn't drive through the storm.
Yeah.
Can you imagine going through New York City or anywhere near, or D.C. or Philadelphia, which is what we drove through on the way up in that storm with that traffic? I'd still be driving.
Lot of water. Yeah. I saw the subways just flooded out.
Yeah, it was bad. It was bad.
Times Square
So-
too. Yeah.
So I did the math. So I did. Let's see. I added Ohio and Kentucky to my states. So let's see. Tennessee, Virginia, Pennsylvania, Maryland, Delaware, New Jersey, New York, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Ohio, Kentucky. So 12 states on the journey.
Wow.
And I'm out. 12 states on the journey.
That's wow. That's quite an adventure. In how many days? 4 days?
Well, no, we started on Friday, after the show on Friday.
Okay.
So of course, we were in Rhode Island and Massachusetts set for a couple days there. So on the days of driving, but probably like 5 days to hit all the states.
Yeah.
In the driving.
Okay.
So it was
Well,
quite the
that's-
adventure.
Well, and you mentioned the rain.
I saw a lot of major league cities.
Yes, you did. And a couple
At
parks.
least drove through them.
Couple parks. I don't know if you guys saw this earlier, but Temple Rutgers tonight has been moved to Saturday due to Tropical Storm Ida.
Not surprising.
What has been moved?
Temple Rutgers, that game. It was supposed to be tonight. It's been moved to Saturday.
I did listen to the Illinois game against Nebraska. Pretty entertaining game. I don't know if you guys watched any of that. It was a football game. It was on.
Watched
I hadn't
it.
listened to a game in a long time. I enjoyed their broadcast. Just driving up on the trip. Good win for Illinois, and it just reminded me of our conversation about Scott Frost. It's like, woof, what do you do if you're Nebraska? You hired this guy. He's the hero. He was the quarterback on a national championship team. You brought him home. You paid him a ton of money. He was the most sought-after guy. You pried him away from UCF, and it's not happening. It is just not happening there.
We've been talking about it for sure. You know what you could have done if you had booked it back faster? You know, you could have stayed the night in Louisville after going to the Bats Sounds game and then just staying the night there and then jumping up and coming back, you know? If you'd
It's true.
If you would have gotten to Louisville just a little bit earlier, you could have done Bats Sounds.
I will be totally honest. In my initial plan, it had me leaving Boston a little bit earlier than I did. And you're right. So I was calling it in the last segment of the show. That's 1:45 national time. I'd probably been on the road a couple hours from there, but I was thinking I was going to get up in the morning and be out of there by, 9:30, 10 o'clock Eastern time. So you could tell that the emotions were running high. We stayed a little bit longer.
Yeah.
Didn't want to say goodbye right away. And so that had me backed up on the schedule.
Willie?
So yeah, you're right, Darren. I could have if I've gotten away, maybe I could have caught a little bit of the AAA game.
Done little Bats Sounds
better.
in Louisville.
Yeah.
And then just, find a hotel right there and then jump up and come back home.
Willie?
So as it was, I was listening to some West Coast baseball. I had great listening of the Dodgers Braves game. That got me going deep into the night, along with the Giants and the Brewers. So
Yeah,
I was.
We won't talk.
I know you don't want to really talk about that, Jay. Sorry.
I mean, I was feeling good in the
Yeah,
eighth
Swanson
inning.
hit the home run. Yeah.
We have a texter here, Doug and Franklin, on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHonda.com. He's disputing your number of states. He's saying it's 13 if you went up Interstate 81. You forgot West Virginia. Did you go through West Virginia?
I got off of I-81 before we hit West Virginia because we went through Charlottesville. So I did not but you're right. If I had stayed on 81, which is one way to go on there, I would have hit West Virginia.
There we go.
But Doug is right. But what we did, we got off in on I forget what road that is. It's State Route 29, I think. I got the roads down pat now. Facilities that they have. We didn't stay very long. We just took a look and then went up and met back up with, I think it's 93, something like that. The interstate that hooks up, goes around DC, Philly, Baltimore, all that stuff. We did it all. We saw America.
Very nice. If you saw UVA's admission rate, you would have seen why that's a beautiful campus. It's pretty expensive.
It is big time. It is
pretty
big
expensive to go there. Do you know what we have next, guys?
Yes, I do.
It's
what
time.
do we have next?
Silly
it's a debut.
Underdog picks.
Silly underdog picks are next.
You need a long shot for a big score? You need silly underdog picks.
There's no need to fear. Underdog is here.
It may be a long shot, but it's all you've got. It's time to pick your dark horse.
And not your nose.
This is Silly Underdog Picks.
Brought to you by Volunteer Hose and Gasket.
Silly Underdog Picks. Now, on Darren, Daunic, and Chase.
There's no need to fear. Underdog is here. Underdog is here.
Hour number 3, Darren, Daunic, and Chase on this gorgeous Thursday afternoon. Darren Mcfarlane, Chase McCabe will bring in the commission in just a moment. It is time for Silly Underdog Picks. This is the contest you love. It's the contest we love, and we want you to play along. The thousands that do every year, we want you playing along again. All you have to do is go to our website, GameNashville.com. Those games are up. You, the listeners, get 3 picks. This week it'll be all college style. Pick 3 college games. If that underdog flat out wins the game, you get the points. We've got weekly prizes, so you don't have to play every single week. You can just say, if you miss a couple weeks, you can say, oh, well, I'm out of it, so there's no reason. No, there's weekly prizes. Keep playing as much as you can. With that being said, let's bring in our esteemed panel. We start with a guy that we saw at Neighbors in Germantown on Friday when we were celebrating 10 years on the air here at ESPN 102.5 The Game. He was still swelled, as he would say, swelled up.
Had a small swole.
Still ripped. He was swollen. We asked him to take off his shirt and leave it for Zach Pillar to hang up in Neighbors, but he chose not to. He is the one and only. Former Titans wide receiver and former wide receiver at The Ohio State and track star, Christopher Sanders.
Man,
Chris?
I'm in a great move. I miss everybody but Kelly. I mean, it's just good to be here.
What is going on between you and Kelly? Because there's already, as we talked about earlier in the show, there's already been a lot of trash talking in our group text. So what's going on?
Well, you just hung up on Chris, so.
Well, I didn't do anything, so I haven't touched the phone screener.
Oh, well, somebody just hung up on Chris.
Or he got zapped.
That's not a bad thing. That he
Maybe it was Kelly. So let's introduce our next panelist. MTSU great, long-time quarterback in the NFL. He is the one and the only. And Rutherford County great right now. He is Kelly Holcomb. Kelly, did you hang up on one Chris Sanders?
If I could have, I would have, but I didn't do that. So I apologize for that. It's not a bad thing he got hung up on because he's talking too much already.
By the way, wasn't that great timing to go right into you? Like Chris gets zapped.
Well, he just got zapped again. Like we can't.
He wants to use another phone, so we're making a quick change of plans here.
Tell me to get the burner phone out. The silly underdogs burner phone.
His cricket phone.
Kelly, how
is that where he gets sometimes the advice from his significant other or anybody else that might be? He's on the phone with us on one phone, and then he gets the information on the other phone.
Oh, there's no question he does because he's not making the picks, that's for sure.
How have you been?
I've been great, man. How about you guys?
Doing fantastic. We had a great conversation with you right after the Hall of Fame induction in Canton, Ohio. You were there. You got to be a part of that. You told some great stories. That was a fun weekend, wasn't it?
Oh, that was the first time I'd ever been, and just to get to see all your buddies that you played with is just because you stay in contact with a few of them and talk every now and then. Like Marcus Pollard, I stay in contact with quite a bit. He's one of my better buddies, but I got to see Marvin. I got to see Tom Moore and Bruce Arians. They were both there. Tom Brady came around, so it was just to get to see all your teammates that you hadn't seen in 15, 16 years, that was pretty cool. And then I don't understand. I told y'all on the air, I don't understand how Peyton and Tom Brady and those guys do that because they had no moment to themselves. I'm sure later on in the evening when everybody had left and it was just their friends, but everybody's tugging and grabbing and trying to turn you around to talk to them, and that's just that's just mind blowing to me with those guys.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So Marvin talks.
Marvin talks, man. Marvin does talk. Marvin was one of my good friends when we played together. I mean, we were together for 5 years, and Marvin was we shared. We sat on the plane together. So there was a seat in between us, but we did that for 5 years. So I got kind of close with Marvin. Marvin does talk.
Okay.
But he doesn't talk around a bunch of folks. No, he's not that guy.
No, he is not. He is the first one out of the Colts locker room. For sure.
Yeah. But he always has a hoodie on.
He does. Yes, he does. So did you ever teach him how to skin a buck or run a trot line?
No, I didn't teach him all that, man. He's a Philly guy, so I don't think he's too much worried about that.
No, I don't think so either. All right, I think we've got Chris Sanders back with us. Kelly, I don't have good news for you. While we're all happy that Silly Underdogs is back and everybody's festive in a good mood, I'm going to probably be a little bit of a Debbie Downer to you and change your mood. The commission has been re-upped for another year. So let's introduce the commissioner, Willie Daunic. He is back. Yeah. And his cheesy song.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is your commissioner speaking. It's great to be back for another season of Silly Underdog Picks presented by Volunteer Hose and Gasket. Here we are in 2021, a contest that dates back to its origins in 1994. This is great stuff. And, Kelly, it's become a great tradition that you jab the commissioner. So go ahead and do it on the air. You've already done it on the text. For me, wondering if you were picking one or two games today.
Yeah, I just want to tell the listeners just how inept our commissioner is. He had to ask Darren how many games we were picking today. So that's the problem that I have with everybody in the radio viewing area.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
I just didn't want to go out on the air and make that type of gaffe on the radio. So I double-checked behind the scenes, thinking that, I was looking out, attention to detail. But instead, I get hammered by the defending champ, the guy that won the contest. He should be in the mood.
Here's the deal. To Kelly's point, I mean, you're the commissioner, so you make that rule. Like, you should come in there and go, hey, we're going to pick two games or we're not.
Correct. You're the overseer, so how about overseeing?
Don't overstep, but oversee.
I like to build a consensus, toss out different ideas and then let the people have their feedback before we make a final decision as a group. I'm not a dictator. What? Chris, isn't that sensible? Come on, help me out here. I'm getting just piled on.
That's whacked. I agree with them 100%, 125,000%. You're whacked.
Well, there are no. Last year, of course, we built a new tradition because, especially with the COVID, we did not know exactly what the college season would look like, and as we know, there were plenty of twists and turns. So we added a pro game. So you make 2 picks per week. Of course, with the pro season not starting this week, we are going to pick 2 college games. And so that's coming up around the corner. But before we move on to 2021, let's take one look back at the 2020 season. I was looking through the records, thumbing through the exciting season last year. Here are the final standings. In 4th place last year, you had Chase McCabe with a record of 8-26.
Wow.
With 48 points. So more games, more opportunities to score. So it has certainly changed. Adding the second game is a big, big part of the strategy. Darren Mcfarlane finished 3rd with 9 wins and 25 losses, 60 points. He lost the silver medal by a half a point to Chris Sanders. Now, Chris won the title 2 years ago as a rookie, the first rookie ever to win a championship.
Thank you, sir.
And he tried the same strategy this year, going for the this past year. Tried it again. A lot of big underdogs, going for the big chunks. Didn't get many. In fact, he was 0-14 to start the season. So he dug himself a big, big hole, but did recover to win 5 games with a big average per game there, 5-29. But he ended up with 60.5 points, 2nd place. But it was all for naught because everybody finished a distant 2nd or lower behind Kelly Holcomb, who won his 2nd title in 3 years, 18-16, using his method, the short passing game, moving the chains, 3 to 4 points per pick, it seems, most of the time, 83.5 total points. So he won going away. And yet, despite the title, he still was, giving me all kinds of flack before this season ever gets started. So I'll remember that, Kelly. I'm going to file that away.
I hope you do. I hope you do.
Well, and he also said if Chris didn't, win like 22-point spreads the one year he won it on silly games, that Kelly would be the 3-time.
Oh,
champ.
I'd have a 3-peat if Chris didn't just throw darts and have his girlfriend help him so much. I mean, I would have a 3-peat this year or last year.
I'm so glad I like you, man. I'm so glad.
Whatever.
I'm glad I like you.
So, Darren, I was looking at you.
Is that Dwayne or is that Chris?
That sounds like Chris. I don't hear Dwayne.
You don't hear the Denzel voice? Come on, man.
You'll never find Lou Ross. Somebody, I got the cool voice. Come on.
Darren, you had a good start last year, but you kind of fizzled after a while. And Kelly left you in the dust.
Though.
Yeah. No, that's not every year. That's not true.
Every year, Darren. Every year.
Willie, that did happen, and we've corrected that in the offseason. Much more conditioning this year. Much more conditioning.
In fact, I'm
in silly underdog shape.
You had Georgia Tech over Florida State for 12.5. And so you got the start you were looking for, but after that, just not a whole lot. Not a whole lot going there.
Yeah. We fired the DC, and we're going to work on slowing teams down when we get a big lead. So, yeah, we fixed that, Willie.
Okay. So with the tradition here, we will go in snake form in reverse order. So Chase has the first pick. Darren will have the second pick. Wow. Chris third. Kelly will have the fourth and then the fifth picks. Then it'll circle back to Chris, Darren, and then Chase. So we are ready to commence another season. You could just feel the anticipation in the air all across town. 2021 Silly Underdog Picks. We'll take a break, and then we'll come back and make the first picks of the season. Remember, you can go online at theGameNashville.com and play along with us, and we'll have all kinds of fun throughout the season. Stay tuned. We're coming back with more here on Darren, Daunic, and Chase. Hey, remember, your home value is way up right now. If you live in our listening area, it's a great place to live. And with mortgage rates back to all-time lows, it's a great time to call Loan Pronto. You can refinance and get cash out of your home's equity if you need some cash to do a project. Maybe it's a home improvement project. Maybe you need cash for something else. Maybe you're paying off some debt for some credit cards or something like that. Loan Pronto can help you with that. They can refinance your loan at a super low rate. They pay the closing costs for you and get you a bunch of cash out, $40,000, $50,000. Don't just sit on that home's new value. Use it to pay off those credit cards, consolidate other debt, get rid of PMI. Use it to make your home even more valuable with that home improvement project that you've been dreaming about. Loan Pronto's got the digital platform. It makes it fast and easy and convenient for you. And if you act now, you can even skip your next 2 house payments. Call Loan Pronto now, 615-499-5780 or loanpronto.com. Ask about the Loan Pronto zero-cost cash-out refi. Equal housing lender.
NMLS 1661781. Subject to lender approval. Not all loans eligible for zero-cost option.
It is time to commence another season of the 2021 Silly Underdog Picks presented by Volunteer Hose and Gasket. The defending champion, Kelly Holcomb, will look for his third title in the last 4 years. Chris Sanders is back after a second-place finish after winning the title his rookie year. Darren and Chase trying to bounce back and get back on the board here. Chase will have the first pick. And remember, there are 2 picks this week, no pro games, so we'll go to college. An emphatic decision by the commissioner going ahead and saying we are absolutely picking 2 games this week, both on the college level. Chase McCabe, ready to roll.
Thank you, Commissioner. It's good to be back. It was a 4th place finish last year. That will not happen this year because, as John Cena says, the time is now, and when this competition is done, you will hear me say, the champ is here! And Twitter is already breaking this story. With the first pick in Silly Underdog Picks this year, we are going to deep in the heart of Texas. The Ragin' Cajuns go in to Texas, go into Austin, and they get they get the win. Get me 8 points, +8. Give me the Ragin' Cajuns. Let's go.
The Ragin' Cajuns of Louisiana, ranked 23rd in the country, are an 8-point underdog in Austin to take on the Longhorns of Texas, ranked 21st. Very interesting opening game down there. So Louisiana.
Sark loses in his debut.
Swing and a miss.
Lots of games to pick from.
What? Sarkeesian swings and a miss or my pick?
Swing and a miss.
Anybody have that one on their list?
Absolutely not.
No.
Yeah, no.
That's not enough points for Chris.
That was a no for me, too.
Really?
No.
Yeah, that was a no.
Okay.
I got you, Chase.
I mean, good pick. Good pick, Chase. Good one. Okay. That was good.
Yeah.
Love it. Love it. Dang it. Dang it.
So it sounds like, Chase, you could have taken a different pick and still gotten that one in the second round, but time will tell. So Louisiana is on the board for Chase McCabe. That brings us to Darren McFarlane for the second pick.
Boo. Boo. When we win. Boo. Be a believer. No, boo.
You fumbled out of the gates there with the be a believer. I hope it's
it's a little tough with the Zoom.
Well,
He's hearing it a little differently than the on-air audience.
Yeah. I'm going to go with a guy that I think's on a little bit of a hot seat.
I know where you're going.
They're at home hosting their already conference tilt. It's tomorrow evening, I believe at 5 o'clock our time. And I'm going to go with the Hokies of Virginia Tech because I think Justin Fuente is on a hot seat. He needs to get some wins, and he needs to beat Mac Brown and those Tar Heels. So I'll take Virginia Tech in 5.5.
Virginia Tech is a 5.5-point home dog as they will host North Carolina, ranked 10th in the country coming in. So an ACC tilt right out of the gate.
Anybody else have that one?
Anyone? Commentary?
Anyone?
Banter?
Nah.
Crickets.
Wow. Chris and Kelly seem to have their sights set on a couple games. Now they will combine for the next 4 picks here.
Oh, I'm sure Kelly will take St. Francis of Pennsylvania.
Brentwood Blaze.
All right, so Louisiana for Chase. Darren takes Virginia Tech. That brings us to Chris Sanders. a first-place finish and a second-place finish in his first 2 years. What will he have in store
And what's
for
his music
2021?
gonna be? He changes his music more than his picks.
Actually, that theme song is for Kelly Holcomb, because I'm happily going to kick your butt this year. That's exactly what that song is about. That's definitely for you. So my pick is Temple over the Rutgers, 12 points.
Oh, that's a great pick. Too bad it's not being played. It's been postponed.
Till Saturday. It's till Saturday.
No, it's still going on.
Has it been pushed to Saturday? Okay.
Move to prime time, baby.
Oh, okay.
Does he listen to anything I say?
I don't see a line.
Commish, you got to jump in, man. You got to do your job.
What is the line? I don't see a line.
It's 12.
Yeah,
Well-
they canceled it due to lack of interest.
See, Kelly, that's why.
Now, it is true. It is true what Darren is saying. It has been postponed till Saturday, but they have not put
I won't see a line.
Well, I'll pick another. Can I pick another one?
Well, I mean, if you guys want to...
It was, I've seen 14, and then I did see 12 before they postponed it to Saturday.
Okay, so it's postponed to Saturday, so that means it's still on, right?
I have it right. I have
Are we
it
in
right
agreement
here.
that we can give him 12.
Well, I have it. I have it.
hold on.
I have a source right
We
here.
have to have, like, if CBS doesn't have... We're using CBS Sports Line, so we're using CBS.com. So if they don't have a line, then what do we...
12.
Where do we go
I
to
have
get the line?
14 and a half. Is what
Okay,
I'm
but
looking at.
but that's we all have to agree that your outlet is what we're going to use, which I'm sure is BetMGM. I could go to DraftKings. I mean, we can. There's all kind of ESPN, and we can go to different places. Where are we going, Commish?
The first decision for the commish.
Here we go. Where are we going, Commish?
Okay. Why don't let's take a consensus of the two services that you guys look at, and if they disagree, then we'll put an average of the two.
Absolutely.
So Darren, you tell me what yours is. Chase, you tell me what yours is, and if they are exactly correct, then we go with that. If not, we'll average the two. We'll split the difference.
14 and a half is what I have.
What do you have, Darren?
You have to give me a second. I didn't realize that Chris was going to pick a game that was postponed and was taken off CBS.
Hey, be ready. I mean, you got to learn after last year. You got to be ready for little twists and turns.
And plus, I was writing down Kelly's pick, which was Wagner against Buffalo. So. That'll hit every time.
There's no line for that one either.
It always hits.
I've got one for you.
Stands on one side of the field.
Weber State against Utah.
It always hits, too. We laugh and we can't find the game. We can't find the damn game, but
Kelly
it always
wants
hits.
HBU against NMEX, New Mexico.
Houston Baptist, baby.
Hey,
I've got 14 and a half on DraftKings.
14.
Okay, so So Chris, you got a couple extra points out of it.
Thank you.
So, and the favorite, the underdog is Temple.
Temple.
Yes.
Temple, a 14 and a half point dog on the road at Rutgers. Okay. That brings us to the defending champion. He's got back-to-back picks here in week one Kelly Holcomb.
I love Peyton Manning.
Me and Marvin Harrison are friends. Don't talk
Chris
about
Tucker.
Marvin.
Chris Tucker. Chris Sanders. Sorry. Are you like in a basement in Bowling Springs? I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, I can hear you now. Okay. Sounds good. Okay, so I'm gonna go with the game tonight.
Oh.
I know that Boise
Bowling
got
Green?
a long way to travel, but I'm gonna say Boise beats UCF.
Aha.
Yeah, there was my other
I
one.
looked at that game. That looks like a good game.
It's the first one I wrote down.
And I'm maneuvering to it now.
6.5.
Oh, it's 6.5 now.
Yep.
According to CBS Sportsline, UCF is a 6.5 point favorite. So Boise State plus the 6.5 against UCF. Couple of programs that certainly have made noise outside of the Power 5 over the years. And they will square off, I guess, in Orlando tonight. Is that correct? Is it a home game for UCF?
Yes.
Not a neutral site?
It's on ESPN. Yes.
Okay. That's certainly watchable. That's a watchable tonight. That's one. And now that Kelly is picked, I will be sure to be tuning into that. All right. Kelly, you get a second pick.
All right.
You get a second pick as well.
Here's your game, Darren. This is a nobody cares game. Okay. But the FCS, didn't Sam Houston State win the FCS last year?
Correct.
Sure, we'll go with that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. It was between them and South Dakota State. I couldn't remember who. But I'm going to say that Northern Arizona beats them.
Do we have lines for this game?
Okay, was this is this weekend, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Do they have stands on both sides of the stadium? I mean, I think
I don't think they have stands at all.
Yeah. I think it's bring your own lawn chair.
Now, this might be the first time we've ever picked a full-on. Of course, Kelly, this is near and dear to his heart. Back in the day when he played for Middle Tennessee, they were in this division. So Northern, and he led the Blue Raiders to the playoffs in the back then called the 1AA. Northern Arizona is an 11-point dog against Sam Houston. But so we do have lines on these games, and usually there's at least one FBS team involved, but I'm willing to go with it if everybody's all right with it.
Where is this game? I don't even see.
Northern Arizona versus Sam Houston.
It's on there.
ESPN Plus.
Wow. It's on there.
What is that?
God.
Don't hate. Don't be a hater, fellas. Don't be a hater. I told y'all it was coming from nowhere, but hey, it's still on ESPN Plus.
Okay.
I figured he'd go.
I'll trust. I don't even see
Cookman.
I don't even see the damn game. So.
When it hits, don't hate.
All right.
Wow. I don't know if that one's going to be available in our online contest, but
absolutely not.
It is on the board for Kelly. All right, a new frontier for the defending champion. That brings us back to Chris Sanders for his second pick. He's got Temple already.
I am going with my second pick. I'm going with Montana State over Wyoming, 18.
Okay.
I know somebody.
I mean, Chris, honestly, what do you know about Montana State?
They got good corn. I guess.
No, this is.
I don't know.
Montana State. What is going on?
Yes, Montana is a state. That is correct.
Who are they playing?
Montana State and Wyoming. There's basically no difference.
Montana State. There's no difference.
What is happening? Montana State, Wyoming.
Yeah.
Like you know nothing about these two schools. Nothing.
Yeah, but I did my research.
I'm waiting for Kelly
to realize Josh Allen doesn't go to Wyoming. He does not play for Wyoming anymore.
I'm waiting for Kelly to go. Hey, that's a good pick, Hoss.
And now we're gonna have to discuss with Darren and Chase and consult the.
I don't see a line on CBS.
There is no line on CBS on this one.
Not again.
All right, hang on.
Mine had a line on it, so that's all I'm saying.
Is this even on TV?
Yes, Kelly, I have to give you credit. It did have a line on that. Montana State at Wyoming.
It's a 3 o'clock game.
Yeah, I've got it at DraftKings. I've got 18.
I have 17.5.
Phew. Round it up.
All right, let's go 18.
It is.
18. Chris Sanders selects Montana State.
If he wins this game, I'm going to order the code red on Chris Sanders. Just so you know. I'm just going to go on the record, and you can arrest me and all that, and I'm going to, you mess with the wrong Marine. I mean, you've got to be kidding me. Montana State plus 18. What?
Okay. Hey, I've seen him play.
I still am trying to get the rationale of how you discovered this game, as to how you arrived at this.
I'm telling you, I had discovered it in the basement throwing a dart up against the wall.
I mean.
Okay.
All right. Y'all laughed at me these last 2 years.
Okay.
All right, let's go to Darren McFarlane for his second pick, and then Chase will round it out.
I'm going to go with a game with like schools people have heard of, and you can find this and everything. So we're going to do this It's going to make it really simple. I'm going to go with Jimmy Franks. I'm going to go with Penn State.
I knew it.
Okay, give me Penn State in 5.5.
Penn State is a 5.5-point dog on the road. Just diving right into Big Ten play in Madison against the Wisconsin Badgers.
Sorry, Chris
5.5.
Craig Smith. Sorry.
Penn State on the board. All right. Good game. Finally, Chase McCabe to round out Week 1.
Well, that is a good pick. I am going to go with the Hoosiers on the road against Iowa. It's a 3-point game, but got to start somewhere. I will go with Indiana +3 versus Iowa.
Indiana is a 3-point dog on the road against Iowa, a pair of ranked teams. So like the Penn State Wisconsin game, the Big Ten has a couple of guys going head-to-head in Week 1, a conference game, 2 ranked teams. Indiana had a really nice year last year. Okay, so with that in mind,
Ryan Porth has just texted and said Montana State versus Wyoming will be broadcast live on Facebook.
I don't even believe that. I believe Facebook is way too big for that game.
Honestly, it had a network on there, and I didn't recognize it. Let me tell you what it says on the website.
It says Chris Sanders' basement. I mean,
Closed
you're not
circuit.
going to find that game. Okay. Yeah, you're not going to find that game. I'm not even
No,
sure they have a scoreboard.
I'm talking about Kelly's game. But no, Kelly's game is on ESPN Plus. I'm gonna have to get back to you on this. So I got to find it again in the sea of games that I never would have thought I was going to find. I'm just lucky I found it the first time. It would be in the Mountain West Conference.
FCBK.
Yeah, tell me what that is. Can anybody tell me what FCBK is?
Nope. I cannot.
Fox, Comcast,
Football Conference,
Blackout.
Basketball, kicking? I don't know.
The BK is definitely Burger King.
Burger King, Fielder's Choice.
Is that a soccer team, Burger King FC?
Football
I don't
club.
know, BKFC? Yeah, I don't know that.
I do not know what that is.
All right, let's review.
Let's review. This has been a shocking week number 1 with some incredible games picked here. All right, 2021 Underdogs, presented by Volunteer Hose and Gasket. Chase McCabe, trying to bounce back after his last place finish, had the first pick. He goes with the Ragin' Cajuns, an 8-point dog, starting the season off down in Austin against Steve Sarkisian's Texas Longhorns.
This is the theme song of the real UT.
There you go. Darren Mcfarlane goes to the ACC with his first pick. Goes with the Hokies of Virginia Tech, a 5.5-point home dog in Blacksburg against Mac Brown's North Carolina Tar Heels. Chris Sanders, looking for big points, doing his thing, going with Temple, 14.5-point dogs as they go on the road to take on Greg Schiano and the Rutgers Scarlet Knights. Kelly Holcomb selects Boise State, a 6.5-point dog at UCF tonight. A couple of teams outside of the Power 5 that love to make some noise. So Orlando will be rocking tonight. Kelly with the second pick, being the defending champion. He picked last in round 1, first in round 2. He goes into his beloved FCS, not the FBS, a pair of FCS teams, Northern Arizona, an 11-point dog hosting Sam Houston State in a game that all of you, I'm sure, will be watching. Chris Sanders, in a game that just has similar types of popularity, he goes with Montana State, an 18-point dog at Wyoming. We had to look up the line. It was so obscure.
By the way,
literally the dumbest pick ever on this contest.
FCBK is Facebook. It is actually going to be on Facebook.
It actually is on Facebook.
Yes.
Okay.
It is.
Well, Chris, there you go. Now you have a place you can watch your guys.
Oh, wow.
Picked a game on Facebook.
Facebook
I
game.
mean, That is the most pathetic pick ever in this contest.
Is it one of the players' moms putting her phone up on a pole or something and posting on Facebook Live?
Yes, Aaron Daunic is doing commentary.
It's on Periscope. Somebody's phone.
No, it's on Facebook. They're two different things.
The moms are announcing. Darren takes Penn State in the Big Ten. A 5.5-point dog at Wisconsin, a pair of ranked teams. Chase also goes into the Big Ten for his final pick of Week 1. He takes the Hoosiers of Indiana, a 3-point dog at Iowa to take on the Hawkeyes. All right, that will do it for week number 1. Remember, you can play online by going to thegamenashville.com. Good luck trying to find the Northern Arizona Sam Houston State on our game slate. I don't think it's going to be there. I'm not sure about Montana State either. But we're going to have some fun this year. TheGameNashville.com. Play along with us. That is our selection sheet for week number 1. And, gentlemen, as always, good luck.
Whatever.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Guys, we're off and running. Thank you, as always. Have a good Labor Day weekend. We'll talk to you next week.
Have a good one, guys.
See you.
That is Kelly Holcomb and Chris Sanders. Good stuff from them. We'll come back. More coming here on Darren, Daunic, and Chase, ESPN 102.5 The Game. Back here on Darren, Daunic, and Chase, presented by Curation CBD. Curation CBD products curated for life. Don't forget to go to theGameNashville.com where you can participate in silly underdog picks. Also, you can participate in Nashville's best deals. When you see that, click on it because you can save cash with the purchase of a $50 gift card for Fat Cat Slims for only $25. A vibrant mid-century American bar and restaurant inspired by custom culture and retro vibes. It's located at 730 8th Avenue South in the Gulch. It's the spot for live music, dinner classics, and the best cocktails you can ask for. Other deals on there for Nashville's best deals. Half off $25 gift card at Joyland in East Nashville. Plus $30 gift card to Central Barbecue for just $15. Go right now to theGameNashville.com. Take advantage of this and while supplies last, because those will go fast. Good stuff there on silly underdog picks.
Oh, that was fantastic. And people have texted in confirming Ryan Porth and saying that it is Facebook. FCBK is Facebook. So we've learned something. Mike from Montana also says, Chris Sanders, Bozeman has potatoes, not corn. I grew up there, and it's nothing like Laramie. Go Cats.
I mean, I don't even know what to say to that.
We'll be sending out the video later. We have that element now, and you guys will enjoy the picture I chose to use of Kelly. He's dejected after a loss with the Browns.
Well done. Speaking of Browns, we'll head up to Cleveland for the final hour at 1 o'clock and find out about the Browns. What is the expectations up there? What are they expecting? I think most people believe after a team that went to the playoffs last year and lost to Kansas City without Mahomes in the second half, they're even better than last year's team. So we'll find out what are their expectations up there. That's an interesting division as well. Cincinnati is probably not there yet. They're getting better, but they're not there. It's a mixed bag on Pittsburgh. People aren't sure exactly what Pittsburgh, what they are, right? Some people believe they'll return and they'll be good with Roethlisberger healthy and everything, and they'll be good again. They'll be a playoff team. Maybe not starting off 11-0, but they'll be good like they always are. Others think that they're going to regress. They're not going to be good at all. I think everybody feels pretty good about the Ravens, and I think everybody feels good about the Browns. What do you mean?
I don't know. I feel like the Ravens are going to fall off. I'm not a believer in Lamar. He's done everything to prove me wrong, but I just feel like this is the year that they figure him out and they fall off. It's a hunch. It's just a hunch.
Well, with that being said, somebody's got to win the division. And last year they had how many teams get to the playoffs from that division? 3?
Yeah. Cincinnati was the only one. I think Cleveland's going to win the division. I think this is the Brownies' year to do that, and they win the division. Pittsburgh, I think Ben is being held together with duct tape. So we'll see, and then I think Baltimore falls off. I think Cincinnati's better. Still not a playoff team, but I think they're better. But, yeah, I have Cleveland winning the division, which is scary to say.
It's a big year for Baker Mayfield, because if he wants that big quarterback contract that others have gotten, right? Dak Prescott just got. And Dak Prescott is interesting because it wasn't because of the big year that he had, although he did, like the first 5 weeks, right? He was having a career year and was on, he wouldn't have stayed on that pace. I mean, he was like set to throw for like 7,000 yards. Like it wasn't going to happen and play out that way. But usually when you get hurt going into, a UFA situation, you would expect that would hurt him, but instead, because the team faltered and they didn't do well, and what it looked like in his absence, it actually, I think, served him well, right? Like, how many times does that actually happen where the player gets hurt and misses most of the season, and it didn't hurt them whatsoever in negotiations? That will not be the case for Baker Mayfield. It's still a house divided, unless you guys tell me differently. I think it's a house divided on whether people truly believe Like, you can trust Baker Mayfield to be, the man for the next decade. Right?
I still can't believe. I was surprised that Baker Mayfield was ranked, I want to say 11 or 12 spots higher in the top 100 by NFL Network than Ryan Tannehill. And to me, Baker Mayfield is still the guy that, like you said, Darren, the jury, I think, is still out to a degree. He can be outstanding when he's at his best, but he still can make mistakes. He also has the benefit of a really good running game, a very talented defense. So he's the key for them.
Okay.
I think Ryan Tannehill is a little bit more of the known quantity. I would have had Tannehill ranked higher than Mayfield at this point.
So when you say mistakes, obviously the biggest mistake for a quarterback is an interception, turning the ball over. And that was certainly, has been a concern with him. But without looking, how many interceptions do you think he had last year?
He did better for sure. But
okay.
I still
What's
think
better?
Less than 10.
Because in 2019 he had 21 picks and 22 touchdowns.
Okay. Tell us what he had this year.
He had 8.
So a nice jump for sure.
Yep, he had 8. 26 touchdowns.
Are you still convinced though that he's there, and there'll be another big jump?
I'm convinced that he is a solid, good quarterback. He's not elite, but he doesn't have to be elite. I don't think everybody has to be elite. We constantly, franchises are trying to find that, just the next Brady, but he's really good. He's 62.8% completion percentage, which I think is solid, and had a winning record last year. They're building the team around him. I mean, when he first came into the league, they didn't really have anything around him, and they had Hugh Jackson. So
would you take him over Ryan Tannehill?
No, but I'm talking about them. For them, he is their – I don't think Ryan Tannehill's elite either, but I think Ryan Tannehill is good for this team. I think he has been a really good quarterback for this team, and they're building around him.
You would take Tannehill over Mayfield. So you still have some questions about Mayfield. That's what I'm getting at. The Steelers also have the first place schedule, so they get the Titans, they get at KC, they get at Buffalo. They also happen to have Green Bay on the road this year. I think that's something to consider. They're at the LA Chargers. I'm just looking at some of their non-division games. They're at Cleveland. Oh, obviously they play Cleveland home and home. But I think the Steelers, if you look at their schedule, they got a pretty difficult schedule, knowing that their division's pretty deep to begin with. And then on top of that, they have the first place schedule, and there's an extra game this year where the first place, I think your schedule place is more important this year than it was last year, just because there's an extra one. There's an extra game that you get.
Isn't it interesting what Lamar Jackson has done in his young career, and now Baker Mayfield led what's always been a hopeless Browns team for decades to the playoffs last year, and yet I would say most still have question on whether they believe long-term Lamar Jackson and Baker Mayfield will look like this, right? Still people question, what are they? They've had success, I get it. Maybe they've been on good teams, but, will it look the same in 5 years from now?
Well,
there's people that go, I don't know. There's a lot of people. Gary Stein covers the Ravens, and he said, I'm not sure. I'm not completely sold. His words, I'm still not completely sold on Lamar Jackson.
Well, he went from best in the league to a step back, but still very, very talented. But I think when you go from the year he had 2 years ago to last year, then it's natural to do that. We're talking about Mayfield, who took a big step forward, and we still have our questions.
Right. I mean, that's the biggest difference between the two. Lamar came in, and started up here. I mean, he went 6-1 as a starter, when he took over for Flacco in 2018, and then the MVP year the next year with the 36 touchdowns, 6 picks, everything he did on the ground. And then he's taking a step back, whereas Baker is kind of building up. That's how I think some people are looking at it. That Baker has developed.
Okay, so we've kicked it around. Who's your pick to win the division?
Well, I said it, Cleveland.
Do you have a strong opinion, Darren? I think I would take Cleveland too. Of course, are we going to make official picks next week?
We're going to do official picks next week before the season. Of course, the season begins on Thursday. Maybe it'll be a Thursday show. We'll just go on and make our official picks.
Barrett has just weighed in on the text line and is not happy with me. He is on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Well, Chase, to think I used to believe you were good at this job. Browns. Pff. He says, hashtag here we go Steelers. Sincerely, Barrett in the Burrow.
I don't think you're going to get a Steelers fan to ever say that. Considering they have just been annihilating the Browns for decades. So
and Barrett calls the Titans the Oilers, so it's okay.
All right, let's narrow it down to this. Will either of you pick the Steelers? I'm not going to pick the Steelers to win the division. I still think that they're going to be a team to be reckoned with, but picking them to win the division with the schedule, with the issues that they had in the running game last year, the issues of Ben Roethlisberger just being a year older, Bud Dupree's not on the defense anymore. I have a hard time saying they're going to win the division.
I have a hard time saying that, but I also am not certain that they won't win the division.
You can never count them out. The Steelers always seem to be
every year.
A team that has their act together.
Yeah.
But I just see a lot of red. I see some flags. I see some red flags.
They've kind of got history on their side. They're kind of good every single year, you know?
Well, I mean, but you're right, and especially last year, I mean, the way they started, but then the way they ended.
Well, here's the biggest difference. Here's the biggest difference. Last year, they had no running game. They could not run the football. Do you believe in Najee Harris? Do you believe Najee Harris is going to change that entire narrative? What if they're really successful? What if he has 1,200 yards rushing this year? Doesn't that make them a totally different team? Last year, they would start first and goal from the 1, and they would not run the ball. They would throw 4 straight passes. I know because I watched it happen. And they didn't score a touchdown. 4 straight passes from the 1 on first and goal. What if they can run the football this year? Doesn't that change things?
Oh, sure. And it's funny.
But don't you think Najee, I mean, you know, what do you think of Najee Harris then?
I don't know. I mean, I think he's pretty good. So I think he will definitely make a difference.
Can Najee Harris block for Najee Harris? Because that offensive line was atrocious.
Yeah.
I mean,
that was a problem.
That's a thing. It's funny that while you're talking, Rick just texted me and said, hot take alert, Steelers are winning that division. Najee Harris is going to take the NFL by storm. So he just agreed with you.
I'm just saying that it's going to make a huge difference. I mean, they could not. If you watch their games last year, it was pathetic. And they're a franchise that has hung their hat on running the football, right, cramming it down your throat. They've done a great job of it for decades and used it to their advantage, and for a lot of success. And they could not do that last year, and yet they still started off 11-0. They could not run the football.
That schedule, though.
I know.
They got to go. They got to play at Buffalo, at Kansas City, at Green Bay, Seattle at home. I mean, those are 4 tough games right there.
Yeah, sounds like the Titans schedule. Who are you talking about? Titans or the Steelers?
Yeah, you're right.
I do think to some degree everybody in the AFC has a tough schedule. But when you have the first place schedule and you're guaranteed to play for the Steelers, you're playing the Titans at Buffalo, at KC. The other teams in your division don't have to play those 3. That's tough. Not that the other teams have it easy, but that's a tough 3-game group right there.
Najee Harris 11-1 to win Offensive Rookie of the Year.
The Colts have activated Carson Wentz off the COVID list, so he is back at practice in Indianapolis. We'll come back. We'll go up to Cleveland. We'll talk to Darrell Reuter. We'll find out what the expectations are for the Browns. We do that next. Daunic and Chase, Darren Mcfarlane, Willie Daunic, Chase McCabe with you. Let's head up to Cleveland. Darrell Ryder covers the Browns, 92.3 The Fan up there. Darrell, thanks for joining us. We were just talking about this to end the last hour. What are the expectations of the Browns this season with their fan base coming off a playoff year last year, a playoff year where in Kansas City they had an opportunity with Mahomes out of the game for the entire second half, but just fell a little bit short against Kansas City. What are the true expectations? Is it playoffs or bust again?
Super Bowl or bust.
Super Bowl or bust. All right, that makes sense.
I've never been to one, and the fans are hoping that this is the year that lengthy drought ends. But, yeah, I mean, look, they're legitimate contenders, no question about it. They're certainly a playoff team. As you know, once you get to January football, anything can happen. Lots depends on the matchups, who's healthy, things like that. But the belief and expectations amongst a lot of fans is that this is the best shot the franchise has had since the late 80s to getting to the big game.
So your answer is, from what I got from that, is they're tempering expectations in Cleveland.
Yes. As you know, Browns fans are some of the most calm.
The fact that you did that without
parade for these are the same folks that had a parade for a 0-16 season 4 years ago.
You did that with a straight face. I am really impressed. Thank you, Daryl. We were also talking about Baker Mayfield. It seems like right now it's still like a house divided, right? Like, what is Baker Mayfield? Is this what he is? Is this what he'll look like 5 years from now? Because I kind of feel like it's a mixed bag. And I also even threw in Lamar Jackson. I think right now you got two quarterbacks that are, highly regarded in that division, but yet the verdict is kind of still out long term. Are they franchise quarterbacks? Can they stay at a certain high level? What do you think of Baker Mayfield?
I think Baker Mayfield is the long-lost franchise quarterback the Browns have been looking for the last 40 years, to be honest with you.
Okay.
And here's why I say that. The first thing, and it's not hyperbole, before Baker was drafted, first overall in 2018, the Cleveland Browns did not win a football game. Like, that's not sarcasm. That happened. They went 0-16. They went 4-44 in 8 games for Baker Mayfield. Since he took over as the starter, the franchise is above 500. It took him 3 seasons, despite having 3 head coaches, 3 offensive systems, 3 offensive coordinators. In 3 years, he had the Cleveland Browns in the playoffs. 11 wins last year, the most in this post-1999 expansion era, most since the 1994 season for the franchise. You look at the second half of the season that saw the Browns finish 6-2. Baker's numbers, 2,049 yards passing, 11 touchdowns, 1 interception. I mentioned the Browns went 6-2, and he completed 64% of his passes. If you double those numbers, that means he threw for 4,100 yards, 22 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and the team would have gone 12-4. That's a franchise quarterback. The first half of the season, I think he was a victim of just they're figuring stuff out. With the head coach, no training camp, no off season. So I really believe that Baker Mayfield nationally gets a pretty raw deal, and there's a real lack of appreciation for what he's been able to accomplish with the Browns in such a short amount of time.
Okay, so he's changed the narrative on a lot of decades of losing and being made fun of. Tell us about Kevin Stefanski. Why has he been able to change the narrative? Because Freddie Kitchens was a disaster. Hugh Jackson is the offensive coordinator here in town for Eddie George at Tennessee State. Right. Why is Kevin Stefanski, why has he been able to, in a very, very short amount of time, 1 year, change the narrative?
Because he's a no-nonsense type of guy. When you listen to him in his press conferences, he's not a big rah-rah guy. He doesn't make a lot of headlines with the quotes and things like that. He just goes out there and does his job and his staff, and they work. I got to be honest with you, this was probably one of the most boring training camps I have ever covered. Not a lot of day-to-day big headlines outside of guys not practicing because they got dinged up or whatnot. You didn't have guys spouting off with big quotes and things like that. no fights in training camp, just a very business-like approach. He's extremely well prepared. He's extremely level-headed. He's the same person when he talks to the media that he is when, he's not talking to the media. He's the same person on the practice field that he is in the meeting rooms. He's the same person. They win a game and they lose a game. And it's that I think that consistency that has earned him credibility within his locker room and also respect. And those type of coaches tend to win because those are the coaches that get the most from their players.
Daryl Reeder is with, the AFC is very deep. So everybody in the AFC probably feels like, hey, that's a pretty tough schedule. But when you try to cut it fine and look at first place schedule as opposed to second place or third place, what kind of draw do you think the Browns have?
I think they got a pretty good one. It's a pretty fair schedule for them, and I think that opportunity presents themselves to exceed their win total from a year ago. Obviously, I think the best thing for them is the fact that they are starting off with the Kansas City Chiefs. Of course, last January, there's obviously a little resentment in Cleveland about that. But I like the fact that game is right out of the gate because while the narrative is, whoever wins that game is going to be odds-on favorite to win the AFC, and the loser, their season's headed for disaster. That's just the nature of how things go, right? But I don't think that's the case. Look, the Browns last year went to Baltimore and got waxed by the Ravens. I mean, they were just flat out embarrassed for 4 quarters, and then they came back and won 11 of their final 15 games. So I don't think that game is nearly as important as it's going to be hyped up to be. So let's say the Browns lose that game. They come right back with a couple of winnable games against the Texans and Bears at home. They got to go to Minnesota, which is another winnable game. I mean, they have a stretch of games where they could possibly win 8 straight. The Chargers are beatable. The Cardinals are beatable. The Broncos are improved, but I still feel like that's a winnable game. Pittsburgh I still think they're going to be a problem, but they're not the Steelers of old. That's a winnable game. The Bengals are an up-and-comer, but that's a winnable game before you get to New England, which this year, a very winnable game. And then the Lions, another winnable game before you get to the end of November, and you got the Baltimore Ravens in Baltimore on Sunday Night Football. So this schedule, the way I see it laying out, they could get fat in a hurry, but then it's tough down the stretch. Back-to-back games against the Ravens with a bye week sandwiched in between. Oakland winnable. Christmas Day at Green Bay. That's going to be a tough one. And then they wrap up with a couple of division foes in the Steelers and the Bengals. So the meat of the schedule, very, very favorable. Week 1, difficult. December into January, somewhat difficult as well.
Wow, Baltimore, bye week Baltimore. I don't know if I've ever seen that fall that way. That's a really interesting stretch. Let me ask you this, Daryl. How would you characterize how Myles Garrett has handled himself since the incident that we all saw, of course, a million times? Like you were saying before, there's always in a situation like that such a wide range of what everybody thinks should happen there. But now we're removed from it. How do you think he's handled himself since that day?
I don't think there's anything Myles Garrett could have done that he hasn't done to put that in the rearview mirror. Yes, it is something that unfortunately is going to be a stain on his career for as long as he plays the game and even the days after the game, but after playing. But I think on the field, he's been phenomenal. He's the same player between the lines. He's one of the best defensive ends and pass rushers in the game. Had he not caught COVID last year, he would have been right there for Defensive Player of the Year honors. He was having an outstanding season. He had a stretch of 3 or 4 straight weeks where he had a strip sack, and the Browns recovered the fumble. I mean, he was wrecking games last year. So I think that the way he has responded on the field, as well as off the field, he does a lot of charity work, both here at home. He's a member of the Water Boys program, which oversees in Africa, trying to bring drinking water to those that don't have it across the globe. So I think Miles has done everything that you could ask of him to try and, for lack of a better phrase, repair his image, restore his good name. My experience with him and my knowledge of him, and I know it doesn't mean much when you look at the tape and you recall what happened, that was not who Myles Garrett was to me. And I firmly believe that Myles Garrett is the guy that we have seen before and after that incident, and that particular incident was an aberration.
We're talking to Daryl Ryder about the Cleveland Browns. So as you talk about Myles Garrett, what are the expectations, realistic expectations with Jadeveon Clowney? We saw him here last year and didn't record a sack before he got hurt. But what's kind of the talk there in Cleveland?
Well, I mean, he didn't have Miles down there either. So
yeah, exactly.
I mean, I'll tell you, the first couple of days of training camp, him and Baker Mayfield got very intimately close. I mean, every play, there was number 90 in the backfield looking at Baker Mayfield. So the expectation is that if he is healthy, and you alluded to it, he's got to be healthy. That's not a criticism. It's a fact. If he is healthy, I think he can return to the dominant playmaker that everyone believes him to be and the potential that he has to be. But he's got to be healthy. The Browns handled him with kid gloves during camp. They gave him a lot of time off. They were very careful not to overextend him. He's been working with the training staff here in Cleveland quite a bit to make sure that he's doing everything he can to keep his body in as best of shape as he possibly can. But he looks like a force to be reckoned with. So for the Browns' sake, hopefully he is healthy, because I think if he's healthy, pairing him with Myles Garrett, I think both of those players could end up with double-digit sacks this season playing off each other, because you can't double and triple team Myles, because if you do, you got to deal with Jadeveon. Well, then if you go over and you try and double and triple team Jadeveon to contain him, you got to contend with Myles. So I think that this has the potential, if he's healthy, to be a perfect complement, those two guys working off each other.
All right. You talk about expectations and living up to things. At this point in his career, what is Odell Beckham Jr., and in your mind, is that good enough for what the Browns need him to be?
Yeah, I think so. I think, what's interesting about Odell is he came to Cleveland, and again, I base my views off of my firsthand exposure. I think Odell got a bad rap in New York. I really do, and I understand it's largest market in the country. You live under a microscope, and every time you sneeze, it's going to make a headline. I get it, but my perception of him when the Browns trade for him is that that he's going to be pain in the backside to deal with. He's a prima donna, a bad teammate, a drama queen, all these negative things, right? It's been the exact opposite as far as my view of him and his time with the Browns. Unfortunately, some injuries have derailed him coming off the ACL. Last year, the first season he played through a core muscle injury and still caught for 1,000 yards, and people wanted to say the guy stunk. I think if, at least under a 16-game format, I think if you catch for 1,000 yards, you've done your job for the most part. But he wasn't making those big explosive plays that landed on SportsCenter every Sunday, so that's why people wanted to say the guy was washed up. I don't think he's washed up. I don't think that the Browns need him to go out and put up 1,600 yards and 10 touchdowns. I think he needs to play within the offense. I think that if he runs his routes, they're going to get him the football. He still has the ability to take the top off of defense, and that's what the Browns need. They've got a lot of mouths to feed offensively. He says, I talked to him last month, He told me that he's willing to check the ego at the door. This year, he's not focused on the stats. He sees what they have. He sees the opportunity in front of them, and he wants to win games. He has already put up 1,500 yards in a season and made Pro Bowls and things like that. His goal now is to win a championship, and he told me that he feels like his best way to do that is to make sure that he's doing what's asked of him. And as long as they're winning, he's going to be happy with whatever role Kevin Stefanski draws up for him.
Very good. Daryl, appreciate the time. We will talk to you down the road and see how this season goes.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, absolutely. He is Daryl Ryder, 92.3 The Fan, up in Cleveland. Covers the Browns for them as we will make our official predictions next week, but the Browns viewed to do a lot of good things after some success last year. We will have more coming on the show. Jarrell Casey has been addressing the media. You'll hear from some of that later on. But first, Darren, you're going to tell us about DraftKings.
He said Super Bowl or bust is what he said.
Yes, he did.
Tempered expectations in Cleveland. Yeah, that's not a sentence people use very often. And he was kidding, of course. They're crazed for the Browns. But college football is what we're talking about. It's back. And we know. We just had silly underdog picks, and it is time to hammer the over and score some cash with DraftKings Sportsbook. They're giving all customers a chance to lower the over-under on this weekend's most anticipated college football game, Georgia versus Clemson. You know, we've been talking about it. For every 2,500 customers who bet on the over of that game, the line will drop by a half a point. So everybody who hits that over on that feature game of Georgia and Clemson, you know what? You're going to get an opportunity. As that line, by the way, lowers, the odds remain at even money. So you can double your money by hitting that over of Georgia Clemson. DraftKings is safe, secure, and reliable, so you can deposit and withdraw your funds at your convenience. But first, you must download that top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app. Right now, use that promo code 1025GAME. And when you sign up, hit the over of that Georgia-Clemson game. Let's get that line down. For every 2,500 people that do so on the Georgia-Clemson game, that line will decrease by a half a point. Yes, this is your chance to improve your odds. Tell your friends and family this needs to be a team effort. Let's get that line down to 0. That promo code again, 1025GAME. For a limited time, and that's only at DraftKings Sportsbook. You must be 21 years of age or older. Tennessee only. Restrictions do apply. Max $25 wager, one per customer. Offer ends on September 4th. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call or text the Tennessee Red Line, 1-800-889-9789. Back here on Darren, Daunic, and Chase, presented by Creation CBD. Creation CBD, products curated for life. Don't forget to join us in partnering with Leukemia and Lymphoma Societies. Light the Night. Light the Night brings light to the darkness of cancer through hope, research, and support for patients and families. Through this inspirational nationwide movement, raise awareness and funding for groundbreaking research and treatment options to eliminate cancer. Nashville's Light the Night will take place on November 5th. That'll be at Nissan Stadium. You can register and learn more at lightthenight.org/TN. Good stuff there from Darryl Ryder, talking about the Browns. Jarrell Casey has been talking to the media in just a minute. We will, as he is retired today from the National Football League. He spent 10 years in the league. The last year with the Denver Broncos, 9 seasons here, drafted in the 3rd round by the Titans. And pretty interesting that he wanted to make sure that he did it this way.
Yeah.
And he is doing it at the Titans facility.
He's at the stadium.
Or at the stadium, wow.
Yeah, he's at the stadium.
Okay.
It says a lot about Jarrell Casey, and it's things that we've all known. Like, he is a genuinely really good guy. And he was upset when he got traded, and he had some comments. And I said earlier, I get it, totally understand. I mean, you've spent your entire career in one place and given the cliche of blood, sweat, and tears, everything for this franchise. He was on some bad teams. Remember sitting out with him at training camp? You guys know. I mean, he was on some bad teams.
I used to bring it up to him.
Yeah, and for him to make the phone call and say, I'm calling it a career. I want to do it, in Nashville. I want to do it with the Titans. I want to do it as a Titan. Even though he didn't leave the way he wanted to, that says a lot about him and just what that team meant to him and that organization meant to him and that this city meant to him. I think it's really cool. I mean, Jarrell he's a Hall of Fame person, that's for sure.
I was so excited when I was listening to the quotes, because I actually was listening to the radio when Robbie, I think, read some part of Jimmy Wyatt's story on it. When he was reading the quotes, I wasn't 100% sure which way it was going to go, but I was hoping that because Jim wrote it, that this had happened. And then when he read the quotes, I was like, perfect. Just an absolute perfect perspective that falls right into line with everything we've come to learn about Jarrell Casey. This is a guy that's always been extremely thoughtful, extremely dedicated to the community. And so, man, I was relieved that there wasn't any bad blood, because now I think we'll always be able to celebrate his great career.
All right, let's hear what he had to say. They were doing this from the press conference room where they do after games at Nissan Stadium. Jarrell Casey announcing his retirement from the league. Let's check in and hear what he had to say.
Appreciate it. Appreciate y'all being here today. Definitely a pleasure and an honor to be in front of this podium one more time in front of the Titan Nation. Just want to say thank you to the organization first and foremost. Just also want to say thank you to the Lord. Without His blessing, without His hard work of shaping me, creating me, I wouldn't be here. And the things that He installed in me, get that from my mother. She taught me to go out there and give everything I can. Her favorite saying and my uncle's favorite saying was always go out there and put that in the dirt. If you don't know what that blank is, it's a little provocative, but that was their thing. And I always drove that with me as I was going through my career. That was always something I always lived on, was go out there and bust your tail, go get after it. And I try to make sure I display that as much as I can. And to this last day, when I made this last decision in my career, it was a hard decision to come and want to retire, but after sitting down talking with my family and going through the last 3 years of injuries and dealing with different things mentally and things like that, it was the best decision for me and my family to pull away from the game and take our focus somewhere else. Me and my wife always talked about not letting the game become you making the game become your world. And I found myself kind of getting wrapped up in the game a little too much, not really focused on what's outside to come. And now going forward, I think, that's the best move for me and my family, trying to focus on life outside of football. I've done everything I possibly could inside this game. Look to be a Hall of Famer. Look to go bust my tail every week. Look to go get a Super Bowl ring. It didn't happen. If Lord's willing to be a Hall of Famer, that definitely be a blessing to come. But, for me, the game of football, pursuing to go get a Super Bowl has come to an end. And, the body itself, told me what it's going to be, and I couldn't go out there and keep damaging myself and not be there for my family for the long haul. So I made the decision to go ahead and call it a quits. I called John up a couple weeks ago. I want to say about 3 weeks ago when I sat down and I talked to him, hashed out the differences that we had, whatever. It wasn't really much differences, more so my feelings and how I felt about the whole situation. But they kept open arms. They said, Case, don't worry about none of that. You're a Titan for life, for your family, and, we love you over here. And I definitely thank y'all for that. It's definitely a blessing. Because me and my wife, we sat and talked about that a lot. Like, damn, what the hell did I do? What the heck going on? But, it's a blessing. And the Lord, he works things in magical ways. And when I called John, and he opened up with straight joy. It wasn't no like, what you doing calling me? It was straight joy. And, to have your GM answer the phone and be hyped for you to come back is definitely exciting. But I think the thing that brought me most joy in this game was my boys that's here right now. The brotherhood of the game. You don't find that a lot outside this world. You don't find that outside the building a lot. And that's one thing I talk about. I was talking to Jim the other day, and I was telling him the biggest thing about Tennessee Titans was talk to other players everywhere else, and you don't hear them talk about a family. You don't hear them talking about a brotherhood. And from day one, KB can be attested to this, when he came in. Well, day one, Derek, when I first got in, he called me as soon as I got drafted. Hey, Case, when you get in, here go my number. Hit me up, man. I take great care of you. And Derek, I like to say, man, that right there had pushed me to go do the same. And that's why I stepped in the building the way I did, was because of you. You everything I did, taking care of my body, like he talked about, bad shape. The reason I switched over to being vegan, the reason I did everything I did in off season was you, my dog. You was that guy who's a great example, role model. And I wanted to be the same for KB and the rest of the guys that came in. And by Derek putting those stepping stones out there, allowed me to go do that. And KB, I just want to say, man, you've been a great leader so far. Keep leading these boys. Let's make sure we get a Super Bowl here now. And I just want to say thank y'all again, media, for always being showing love, always being here for me, always, writing something nice, never having really nothing negative to say about me. And so thank you, Lord, that you blessed me not to have that come up. But appreciate y'all. And I just want to say thank y'all again for coming out today, showing me the love, and, welcoming me back home to being a Titan. Appreciate it. I know how I get with those sweats in front of this camera.
Terrell, you always talked about wanting to spend your whole career with one team. How do you view the last year then? Do you sort of write the year in Denver off, or what?
Okay, right off is there, and something I talked about a lot with my wife and with my agent is that I didn't want to go up to Denver. I can honestly admit that I did not want to go up there. When John called me and told me they was going to trade me, I honestly begged him. I was like, don't do it. I don't want to go nowhere else. I want to be a Titan forever. That's just what I wanted to do. And when, you don't control that situation or whatnot. But at the end of the day, man, I did what I said I wanted to do, and I wanted to play for the Titans. And that was a goal of mine. And 3 games there, do I scratch it? Not really. But to me, like you said, I didn't really get to go out there and showcase my talents the way I wanted to, show them what I can do. But it's definitely a blessing to be back here.
You had some bad feelings about the trade. Obviously, you talked about patching it up with John. What was that year like, kind of coming to terms with all of that and ending up full circle back here after you said the things that you did?
The crazy thing about it is, after I made the statement and whatnot, it literally was like 2-3 days. Me and my wife, we sat there, and I was like, yeah, I'm upset, I'm mad or whatever, but I always talked to her before the thing even went down. I know it's a business. Crazy part, as soon as the season was over, I called it out. I told her, I said, bro, I'm out of here this year. I already know how it goes. This is part of the business. It's a, new guy coming in town who's dominant. And John, we talked about it. He made clear to me, at the end of the day, you could be on the streets these days. You could be sitting around waiting for a job. But he gave me the opportunity to go get traded somewhere else to continue to play and showcase my talents, and I only can be thankful and grateful for that.
Long Beach, Southern California, went to USC. Just prior to coming to Tennessee, what were your thoughts about, just coming to Nashville? And then once you got here, how did your, view of Nashville, Tennessee kind of evolve as you made this your home?
First off, I didn't even know nothing about Nashville or Tennessee when I first got drafted. I'm like, what part of this country I'm even going? So I had to literally go Google it up and search, and when I looked at it, I was like, okay, we're gonna rock with some country music. We're gonna get it going. But as soon as I got up here, man, it was just like love. Everybody that you run across is super nice. everybody that you run across are just cool people. And so that kind of like was a little different for me being back home in LA. Everybody in LA usually stuck up. You ain't nobody care who you are. So to get out here and just, have a full community, based around you, everybody loving on you and stuff like that, definitely was a blast. And, to come out, Tennessee at that time wasn't the hottest in the NFL or not, but to be able to build a culture with the brothers here and build a winning tradition around here is what it was all about, That's the reason I stuck around. As long as I stuck around, we're going through the whole free agency periods and having options to go. But my thing was, there's no reason to run from this great community when you're trying to build something great. And that was my whole mindset being here.
Darrell, you have spent time here when it was low and you were a big part of when things got high. What were some of the highlight moments, that year when you guys were able to go to the AFC Championship?
From that year, it was more so to just the camaraderie we started to build. I think, a lot of guys started hanging out together a lot more. Like before, it used to be just DBs by themselves hanging out, the linebackers, the D-lines probably hanging in. But that year, man, everybody started to click. Everybody started to get together. And like I talk about that familyhood, that brotherhood, we started to do like trips on a yearly basis at the end of the season. And we have dudes from all different groups coming and join us on these trips. And when you can build those type of camaraderie and you're doing certain things inside the office, it shows up outside the building and it shows up on the football field. And I think that's something that we've pushed around here a lot, is the work that a lot of guys doing now in the community, a lot of the work that we're doing on the field, going out there extra. That was all set in stone early years, and these guys is running with it.
Did you start the off season thinking you were going to play and sort of change your mind along the way, or were you trying to convince yourself to still play through much of the offseason?
I was more so convincing myself trying to still go. Once the season had ended up there in Denver, honestly, I was checked out. Like I said, mentally, just not really there. Get up, go work out. Some days don't go work out. Once I started doing that, I knew that my love for the game was kind of starting to dwindle. It was never a day. My wife used to tell me, Brian, stay in bed, take a nap. Like, just relax a little bit. I'm up at 6 o'clock in the morning. When I'm sitting there in the bed at 7 o'clock, I knew something was going wrong. And so I used to get up, and I tried to tell the wife, like, a couple of weeks ago, I'm like, all right, move around, trying to run, trying to just go have free time. The body's not clicking the same, and it's not moving the same way. And there's no way I'll go out there and put bad film on tape just to go collect a couple of dollars. It's just not my style. My thing, if I can't give you everything I can give, y'all watch my game. I'm out there nonstop from play one to play 100, 300, whatever it is, whatever we're out there for. I'm trying to get it. And so if I can't do that, then I don't need to be out there.
Whether it be the finger wag after a sack or a little celebration, I mean, you brought the energy. What's your message to the fans that I know?
A lot of people out there are haters. They don't understand how I play. They don't understand the things that I do on that field. But those guys who actually tune in week to week and really see out there, and without the media and all the people voting for me, I wouldn't have been there. I wouldn't be Jarrell Casey, 5-time Pro Bowler, 10 years in this league. So, say thank you to all y'all for just really rooting and been in the stands every week. And, when those sacks do come out, they scream and going nuts. And, me picking.
Or circumstance that, like, you experienced, you guys realized, okay, we have to get back. This is something that we need to do. This is important.
Well, the biggest thing that, I won't say necessarily something happened and where we had to do this. It was always just a passion of both of ours. One, when my brother been incarcerated, it was always something that, I wanted to make a difference of trying to keep people from going back and getting into the system and things like that. And then for my wife, the career that she worked and the career that she has, being an attorney, it was just always something in our mind that we wanted to help as much as possible. And like I said, it was always installed in me from day one. I used to tell all my friends from back home, if I made it to the league, that was going to just be the scratch of the surface. My thing is to see how much I can affect the people around me. And as long as I can make change in other people's lives, whatever I do on the football field is icing on the cake. And so, my first couple of years, I used to always just go out there in the community and tag along with people that's doing the community work. And I'm like, dang, this is fun. Like, why not go and do it yourself? You know what I'm saying? Like, why not go and get involved fully yourself? And my wife, she got here and she was like, stop wishing, let's get it done. And that's how we got out there and started getting it rocking.
Your whole life, and what's the overriding emotion when they like this? You're probably happy, some sadness, maybe proudness of what you accomplished.
I'm proud. Nowhere near that. There's not one bit of sadness in me at all. I made the decision on my own. That was the blessing of it all. I could have been hurt and no team ever wanted me. But I was able to sit around and, be able to take in a couple of offers and see what people was offering. And I was able to sit there with my wife and say, hey, we're not doing it. We're going to go and rock out and go do something else. And to be able to make that decision on my own accord was definitely a blessing, and definitely a feeling that I always wanted to have. Make sure, I was walking away from this game on my own accord.
Jarrell, one of the favorite stories you told us was when you got your first big contract, you bought your mom a house. You said, I don't need anything else. Now it's your time. You have a beautiful family. What's next for you, and is the Casey Fund the vehicle for all of that?
Casey Fund is driving the vehicle all the way. My wife, she got her things going on. My first thing before I do anything, I told my wife I make a promise to myself I won't go and try to dive into any business endeavors until I finish up school. So that's my number one goal. I left as a junior, leaving college, and in order for me to go bless myself, I got to finish up college. So I'm basically putting myself on a little punishment until I finish up school. No telling how long that will take. I'm not a school person, but, I got a strong backbone who's going to sit there and ride with me. So she's going to make sure it get done. She want to take pictures with me in our cap and gowns. So I know she's going to make it happen. But, the biggest thing is I'm blessed. I'm fortunate enough to play this game, and this organization have taken great care of me and my family, that we don't have to rush to go figure out something else right now, but focus on, like I was saying, more so the mental space and really gather myself for the next year or two. And then, from there, I'm only 31, so I got a lot of life ahead of me. And from the things that we have in place and the goals that we have in mind, y'all not done hearing from us, not yet.
There you go, Jarrell Casey announcing his retirement from the National Football League. We will come back and close up shop here on this Thursday here on Darren, Daunic, and Chase, ESPN 102.5 The Game. It is, Jim. Back here on Darren, Daunic, and Chase, presented by Creation CBD. Creation CBD. Products curated for life. Don't forget tomorrow, your chance to participate in Nashville SC Pick to Click, brought to you by Camarena Tequila. If you guess correctly which player will score a goal in their game on Saturday, you win a prize pack and a 4-pack of tickets to an upcoming Nashville SC home game. Remember, that's tomorrow morning at 9:45. Keep that in mind. What did you guys make of Jarrell Casey speaking on his now retirement from the National Football League?
You know, when I was thinking back on Jarrell Casey, one of the things that I thought about was a story he shared with us sitting at a training camp one day where he was talking about his challenges growing up and how he was dedicated enough to the game to take a bus. He took a public bus in his practice uniform to get to practice as a kid. You know, had to ride the bus system by himself just to get to and from practice. You know, he didn't have a ride. Some of the things that we take for granted these days. He had to work for everything. And I just loved hearing him talk about his priorities, you know, saying that it meant a lot to him to be able to give back and make differences in people's lives. You know, not just all of the things that are satisfying about being a player, but taking it upon himself to want to do more and help other people. He's had some really interesting life experiences and challenges that he, it drives him to want to help other people. And isn't it something, guys? Anybody would take in a heartbeat the career he had. What, 9 or 10 years? You know, last year I think was his 10th year. Of course, he didn't really
3 games.
Didn't get to play much, but you know, that's a long career. That's fantastic. He's 31 years old. He has so much of his life
set for
left.
life.
Well, he's set for life, as he talked about. He's been fortunate in that respect, but he's got so much to live. He's got a lot of time left in his life to do whatever he wants to do. This is the lesson that I think a lot of times those that dream to play in the NFL or any league, they lose sight of. That even if you have a great career like Jarrell Casey, you're done at 31, and you're satisfied. You had a great career, but you have so much of your life left. What are you going to do? But he's really set himself up. Number one, he's not, like he said. He said, "I'm lucky. I'm not just having to find something right away." We had a great talk with Zach Pillar about that last week on Friday. You know, about that transition. He's another guy that played for a long time, but you know, you want to find something that's fulfilling, right? Whether that's going into business or, you know, working more in your community or a combination, anything. But what's your vision? You know, while you're playing, set yourself up with layers. You know, dedicate yourself to your craft, but also be thinking about the big picture. I just loved how he laid it all out there.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I sat there and just was smiling because you could hear the jubilation in his voice, and that he knows he had a great career, and being able to do it here and retire here, and you know, he hasn't hidden from anything. And we've talked about that on this show all the time, of guys that that are honest, and he was very honest about the trade, and he's brought it up in his speech of he and J-Rob, hashed things out, and basically begging not to be traded. And I appreciate that honesty. I mean, it just shows you what kind of person he is. We have a text on the text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com that says, played against Jarrell Casey as a sophomore in high school, and remember shaking his hand thinking, I'm shaking hands with greatness, and I was right. Dominant high school player, underappreciated college player, but a great college player, and then goes on to have an all-pro NFL career and still was underappreciated. And so glad this city does not underappreciate what he did here in Tennessee. Stud, forever a Titan. Good text.
Great.
I mean, he's made $60 million, so, I mean, I don't blame him. I mean, you've been in the trenches for 10 years in the NFL. That's a hard life.
And he had a lot of injuries, right? If you go back year after year,
it's a hard life.
We can remember him playing through a lot. And I love that he went through the tough times with the team. I think there's an extra admiration from the fans. He went through the tough times, and he got to play on some good teams late. It's a shame that he got shut down when the team was making a nice run.
Yeah.
He and Marcus Mariota had to miss that last game when it was just coming together for Derrick Henry. I really would have loved to see them play the Colts with him and Mariota. It was just sad, right? They just were dropping like flies. Like Logan Ryan broke his leg. Remember that there was 4 or 5 guys that just they weren't just trying to play hurt. They just were out.
He made some big plays.
Okay, here's a good guy that we've enjoyed, that we watched battle when the team around him wasn't up to snuff. He got to play on that team that went to the AFC Championship game. That was cool.
Yep.
We always enjoyed our conversations with him over the years. And, I mean, the one thing that I always remember is the story you've heard so many times on the show is when we were at, out in Cool Springs at the Wing Place doing, him and Jason McCourty used to rotate every week.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Coach O.
I'm sorry, Damian Williams and Jason McCourty, and he was the guest. And, we were out there, and it was like, tell us a Coach O
He was
story.
just a rookie back then. That
USC.
was funny.
And, he let it fly on the radio, and it was great. But it was like, oh, boy. And he was like,
rookie
sorry,
mistake.
Guys. Yeah, rookie mistake. But that's just how he was. I mean, he was a genuine guy. And, hey, well stated. He's got his entire life ahead of him. He's 31. He's made $60 million. Jarrell, sit back, relax, and then go figure out what you want to do.
Yeah. And when
pretty
that
nice thing to have.
When that happened, there was just a young intern in the studio that didn't know how to do anything. That was the problem.
That was good times for sure. That'll do it for our show today. Fun show. We'll be back tomorrow to wrap up the week. You enjoy the rest of your Thursday. Continue to be safe. We want to talk to you tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Stay tuned. Stillman & Company is next.
Hey, remember, everybody, the Predators have the first 3 months of season tickets ready to go. They are on sale right now. We are really excited about the season that's coming up. I'm telling you, it is going to be here before you know it, the next hockey season in Smashville. It's outstanding. So remember, that's for anybody. The single game tickets, October, November, December, are on sale to the general public. Of course, season ticket citizens currently have access to single game tickets for the entire Predators season for 21-22. So you have that ability right now.